School Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Ming of Revolution. And we got to get into this Kamala Harris and Trump update today. Revolutionary salute to y'all out there. Before we get in that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button, like, share, subscribe, support the platform. Salute out there to all of our revolutionary veterans who are thinking about their community and you know, tried to do the right thing. Some of them was tricked by this wicked government. Salute to y'all. Salute to the laborers out there who work hard to keep this country going. Salute to those who fighting to keep our border secure. And you know that's not the Democratic Party. They can give a damn about our borders. But let's just get into this information today.
The last thing Dr. King said to me before he was murdered, Martin said, you know, I sit here deeply concerned that I suspect we are leading our nation
I don't know what happened earlier.
On an integration trip that has us integrating into a burning house. Most of the politicians I know of make promises only to walk into the places of power and then deny us. I guess part of the reason I'm here is to really look through the ravages of the Democratic Party and see if anything is really worth salvaging.
Yeah, so that was MLK. Well, a conversation that he had. He knew in the end that Democrat Party isn't where it's at. And I think a lot of, especially Black people and Latinos, are waking up to that fact. And I got some evidence, all right? But the Democrats aren't going to go down easy. You know that southern border? It's open for a reason. But with that being said, let's dive in.
It's deliberate. The Democratic Party realizes that the Black vote is dwindling because the Democratic Party has not delivered for the Black community. And they realize that. So what do? They open up these borders and they let people come from around the world come into this country. They're paying no rent. Their food is being provided for. They don't even make their beds. They have a maid to go and make their beds every day. We don't want them in our community. Let them go back to where they came from. Because it's my position that if you have a problem with your country, then you stay and you make it better by fighting that government.
That's right.
Making your government do what it needs to do by its people, because that's what we do in this country. That's what I've been doing all of my life. I don't have any place to run to. America is my home. It's my country. We built it.
They're trying to replace us. They see the writing on the wall. And I'm not saying most Black people or all Black people are going to vote Republican, but a significant portion will. More than what has, or more Black people will vote Republican in this election than in the past 60 years. I believe that. And here's a bit more evidence for those that say it's not going to happen. Check it out.
My name is Jasmine Woodson.
Hi, my name is Silla.
I'm Karen Watson. I'm Yolanda Johnson from Georgia.
This is BB Diamond from New York City.
And I seen Willie D shucking and jiving and shoe shining earlier. I might make a video tomorrow just confronting him till he finally have to address me. You see, we talking about people who is shilling for the Democrats. Seldomly do they bring up old Willie Dennis over there. I seen him lie and say Kamala was surging in the polls, misleading his voters. That's a lie. She not surging in no goddamn polls. Black people are leaving the Democrats at alarming rates. They gonna have the sorority people. They fluffing the numbers, but she not surging no polls. That's nonsense.
I'm Dana Galen, and I'm from Tampa, Florida.
I live in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Out here in Maricopa County.
Kalamazoo County, Michigan.
I am a proud African immigrant living in Florida.
I'm from the great state of New Jersey.
I'm Angelina from Philly, and this November,
I am not voting for Kamala Harris.
I am not voting for Kamala Harris.
I'm not voting for Kamala Harris.
I am not with Kamala Harris.
I am not with her. I'm not with her.
I am not with Kamala Harris.
I'm not with Kamala.
I am not for Kamala. I am for Donald Trump.
I am not with Kamala. I am not with her because she is not with me.
I support President Trump and the economic policies our country experienced under his leadership as our 45th president.
President Trump will support our law enforcement agencies and fund them appropriately.
Donald Trump made me proud to be an American. I'm with Donald J. Trump.
We need a leader who can make America great again.
Trump puts Americans first, and he always will.
We need Donald Trump.
I and millions of other Black Americans will cast my vote for Donald J. Trump.
I will proudly cast my vote for Donald J. Trump as our next president.
Let's make America great again. My name is Jocelyn.
Absolutely. Let's make America great again. Shout out to all my beautiful Black sisters out there. Proud of y'all. Because honestly, as a Black person, and I'm sure as other races too, but especially as a Black person, like that takes some cojones. For example, with myself, a lot of people in my family are staunch Democrats and have been their entire life. And so when you, as a Black person, come out and say, nope, I vote Republican, they look at you funny. Sometimes some people say some things about you, right? So that takes some cojones. That takes some guts. That takes some nerves. So I commend my Black brothers and sisters for walking away. Welcome to the good side. Welcome to the good side. Don't worry about what they say. Don't worry about it. I've heard it all, seen it all, right? I got some DMs right now from some Black folks calling me all types of names. Don't care. Don't care. I'll see you in November. All right, but let's continue on. Check it out.
Excuse me, can I get your opinion on who you voting for, Kamala, or is it going to be Trump?
Trump.
Why you want for Trump?
They're going to make the economy lit again.
Okay, so you're looking for that good stimulus, something like it, something similar to it?
Nah, I get money. I don't need that government assistance.
What do you think about Kamala?
She a puppet on a string. Just tap dancing.
Well, it's been...
At the end of the day, I'm going to leave you with this. People are like tea bags. You never know who they are until you dip their ass in some hot water.
But why Kamala?
You know, it is just, she's been running the country for 4 years, so might as well 4 more, right?
Who you voting for?
Donald Trump. That's my president for sure.
I'm a Donald Trump fan. I love his leadership. I love the priority of the viewpoint and just his message of the boldness. Letting the people know that he's our president. He's here to fight for us, and he's going to do whatever he can to make it right. Salute to Donald Trump.
Salute to Trump. Salute to Trump. I mean, I'm telling you. And, you know, this continues on. I have a lot of these video clips. Let's continue. Check this one out.
Growing up, you know, Black in America, you're told that you're supposed to just be a Democrat. So one day I asked myself, why am I a Democrat? And so I did the research of why I'm a Democrat, looked up what the Democrats were about. Then I did research about what the Republicans were about. And I realized that I've never been a Democrat. Anything that I stand for, everything that I was raised, my beliefs, my thoughts, it's all towards the Republican Party. And so then whenever I got there, I was able to get rid of my TDS, my Trump derangement syndrome, and I was able to open up my eyes and actually listen to him and give him a chance. And, you know, Black people, we don't like to be stereotyped or penalized or placed in a category. So I'm like, if I'm doing that to him and I don't want that done to me, then who am I? So it just kind of put me in a different mind space.
Wow, that was so well said, and I absolutely love your shirt. I think everyone is going to want to buy one of these shirts. So cute. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your support. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that shirt. I need to get me something like that. Okay, I need to get me something like that. But hey, if you like this shirt, link is in the description. Okay, link is in the description. Anyway, I mean, it's even more than Black people as well, though. Okay, it's a lot of folks, and that's why I've been talking about some of these polls that have come out and said, "Oh my goodness, Trump's gonna lose big." And I said this in previous videos. Moving forward, after Trump wins in November, We got to show up and do our part. Don't get overconfident. But after he wins in November, the Republican Party will look completely different, from the voting base to the politicians. And one, you're going to have a lot more black people, as like what you have seen previously, along with myself, that are going to be openly voting Republican and supporting Republicans. But not only that, you're going to have a lot of people who, you know, have bright colored hair that you wouldn't have expected to vote Republican. That will.
If you would have told me a month ago that I would be voting for Donald Trump in this next election, I would have told you to kindly fuck off. You know what? No. I would have told you to fuck right off, because absolutely not. I would never vote for him. But you know what? I'm a human. And as humans, we are allowed to grow. We are allowed to evolve. We are allowed to change our opinions. We are allowed to educate ourselves on topics that maybe we're not as versed on as we think that we are. And that's exactly what I've been doing. And I realized that I was drastically misinformed before, and I won't let that happen again. So I will be voting for Donald Trump in this next election. If you would.
Trump, baby. What can I say? You know, what can I say? It's Trump. And, you know, it's majorly important that we do get Trump in office, because we're going to be in some dire circumstances if we don't. And we're going to be up against a HE double hockey sticks of a fight. Trust me when I tell you, they will not go down easy. They're going to pull all the punches. All the punches. You ever cornered a scared animal? You ever seen one of those types of videos where, you know, like a lion or something, a tiger, you know, like a predator, corners an animal? They panic. They scramble. They do anything and everything possible. They lash out. That's what you're going to see. But if they get back in office, it's going to be real bad.
Priority in this election is to defeat the blue team. The Republic depends on us defeating the blue team. And all of us, Bobby Kennedy included, could do whatever it is that makes that most likely.
Suspend my campaign and to support President Trump.
And other considerations are secondary. Now, that said, I certainly hope that Donald Trump will recognize that his ascendancy to the White House is not the objective. It's what happens after he gets there, and having Bobby Kennedy on board will greatly increase the chances of doing what he has told us that he wants to do. So
I think it's fantastic that, you know, RFK Jr. got on board with Trump. I think that is absolutely amazing. It's massive, and it's needed. It's needed. We need the margin to be so big, as Trump said, too big to rig.
Salute.
That's a fact. I said that a long time ago in a video. The exact same thing, not the exact same words, but I said the exact same thing. That gap has to be so big that if they did try to cover it, it'd be way too obvious for everyone. Because I know some people are going to say, well, it was obvious the first time, Rich. Clearly it wasn't. Clearly it wasn't. There's a lot of Democrats who don't believe that it actually happened. Okay. So if the gap is big enough, well, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to cover that. One, you're going to have to get a lot more people involved, which somebody's going to snitch. Somebody's going to slip up and say, yeah, here it is. I got it. Here you go. You know, type of deal. So that should be the focus. Just because, you know, I make these good videos of, hey, Trump is actually in the lead, he's not actually losing, that doesn't mean we should get comfortable. As we get closer to the election and we possibly start seeing polls that say Trump has this massive lead, don't get comfortable. Do not get comfortable. Pedal to the metal. The whole way. The whole way. Once again, and I'm going to keep giving them a shout out.
We got shoe shiners and buck dancers like Willie D lying to his audience today, telling these people that Kamala is surging. And that's a goddamn lie. Surging amongst blacks. That's a goddamn lie. Boule Greek freak Willie D exposed himself this hand too, boy.
Ever since Kamala Harris has stepped in for Joe Biden
in the 2024 presidential campaign. We've seen the big play from the Democratic Party towards Black people with a very persistent strategy of identity politics. Now, this has worked to a certain degree, especially from influencers. Let's look at Plies. Plies is a former rapper, and he's really been offensive towards African Americans, asking for a change from Kamala Harris.
It is real quick. But to everybody who, especially the ones who look like me, and the men who look like me, who quit the...
Is this that same dude? I think this is the same rapper, Plies. I think this him. Was he hiding out from them West Coast gangsters, tucking his jewelry and all that stuff on 40 Glock? I think I'm gonna have to do a video on that to remind Plies. Don't you tell us nothing about nothing. Boy, clean up your name. Why did you hide out in the bathroom when 40 Glock was on the terror back in the day when he worked for 50 Cent? Jamie Foxx told us it was you, Plies. Why did you hide out in the bathroom, hiding your chains and all this shit? Oh, no, you a Muslim now, huh? No more dope game? Shut up, clown.
If Kamala want my vote, she need to explain herself to me what she gonna do for the Black people. Listen, stop asking a motherfucking Black woman to explain themselves to you or explain themselves to y'all. If y'all ain't willing to ask a motherfucking white man, then motherfucking explain himself. Y'all cool with the white man not explaining his motherfucking self to you. Oh, the motherfucking Black, she need to explain herself to me what she gonna do for the Black community. She want my vote. She need to explain herself. You ain't motherfucking asking the white man to explain his motherfucking self. You too motherfucking scared to ask him. Motherfucker, somebody need to explain something to y'all. Well, she been in the office already 3.5 years. Why she ain't do all the things she said she was gonna do? Cause she ain't the motherfucking president. That's why. When you go to the motherfucking McDonald's, that lady that's the motherfucking manager, she don't get to do what the fuck she want to do. She might can give you some motherfucking prize, but that's about it.
See clowns like this. So this clown right here, and he don't even care though. He don't give a damn about no politics because he don't know what he's talking about. He's saying, well, she cannot do what she say she want to do because she's not the president. Fool, do you know it's something called a Democratic platform? She don't have no position. She's running off of Joe Biden's position. Guess what? Joe Biden don't have no position. Those are Democratic platform positions. She's going to push the Democratic platform. This fool don't know what he's talking about. He's like, oh, when she get in there, then she going to be able to do what? Exactly. Guy who hid out in the bathroom and tucked his chains when the West Coast cats was on his ass and Jamie Foxx told everybody, that's you, Plies.
Free motherfucker. That's about all she can motherfucker do, but she can't change the price of that motherfucking £1/4 up there. Oh, that motherfucking Big Mike.
And that's interesting, I guess, because you're a Black person and Kamala Harris was the vice president, and the vice president, when it comes to you, hands are tied. You shouldn't ask for anything simply because you don't ask the white man for anything, like Donald Trump. Now, this is interesting wordplay because for the last 60 years, the Democratic Party has owned the Black community politically. So you're supposed to go and ask the white man for something. And even though you've had Barack Obama.
It's a lie that Black people didn't ask Trump for nothing. Why the fuck did Trump sit down and talk about the platinum plan that he would be presenting Blacks? No, it's not enough, but it's a deal we're talking about here because he knew what we're demanding. Trump already know what we're saying. We want that lineage-based reparations. We don't like this anti-Black hate. He already knows. So he was like, damn, we're going to have to work something up that's reparations, but it's masked as something else. You know, woo. Come on, man. So it's like, y'all scared to ask, bitch, who you think you're talking to, boy?
Obama, and then you have Kamala Harris, two quote-unquote Black candidates. You shouldn't ask them for anything since you've never been getting anything from anybody. Let me ask you a question. If you were going to a restaurant and you wanted better service for your money, and if the restaurant responded to you, well, you don't ask the other restaurants for this service, why are you asking us? What would you do? You pretty much get up and leave. And this has cost African Americans in the city of Chicago. This has been a Democratic stronghold for, I don't know, like the last 70 years or 60 years. Every mayor in the last, 60 years has been Democratic. And Blacks have done so with trying to eliminate Republican, quote unquote, white supremacy. They've been doing this in droves. And the last time they did this, they got progressive mayor Brandon Johnson in power. But what they didn't know was the migrant crisis was going to hit Chicago.
D.L. Hughley, Ricky Smiley, Boule Martin, plies, little feminine behind it. It's something I'm starting to notice about these people who tell us vote blue no matter who. Well, you could be anything you want to be. Y'all get what's going on? The type of black men that's willing to say this type of shit. Yeah, you got to be feminine.
Chicago pretty hard within his tenure. Now, to be fair, it hit all America as the policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris infiltrated Texas, and Texas bust them through on to other states. But the migrant crisis really hurt the black community a lot.
Who's supporting these migrants?
We are, because I work 12-hour shifts. I have to work for my money. I don't get anything free. I don't get to choose a $3,000 link card, or I don't get to buy a fancy car without working. You have to work hard for those things. So I think it's unfair. I think the migrants are bringing a lot of crime to the country. They're taking from the American people. They're taking from the American people. They're also selling drugs in our country. They're also snatching up young girls. They're doing a lot of things that are just not right.
Do they get prosecuted for any of their crimes?
No, they don't. They may lock one or two up, but they let them right back out. It's the same thing I saw. I don't live in Inglewood, but I saw something because I have to go in the area sometimes. And I saw how these migrants they're worse than the people here. They steal cars. It's a shame. It's awful. And I think it's invading our country.
And Brandon Johnson doesn't do anything to stop it?
Brandon Johnson is not worth a quarter. He's not worth a quarter. All he's doing is right now, because the DNC is here, he wants to make it look good. But clean the city up and keep it clean. Don't make it look good. Don't put a facade on for the people that's coming here. I don't think that's fair. And I don't think he should have another term, period. I will never vote for him. Never.
Just 3 days ago, the YouTube channel by the name of Numbers USA, and check them out, a Chicago-based YouTube channel, did a particular documentary called Chicago Residents Speak Out Against Democrats for Putting Illegal Migrants Before Locals. Some of these testimonies that you're going to hear will shock you.
Can you tell me about your neighborhood and what you've seen living here in Chicago?
It's just been a disaster. They started off putting the immigrants over in the police station. And as they started to move them out of the police station, they stealthily started to put them in our neighborhoods. Well, the neighborhood didn't want them. The residents, the citizens, we pushed back, but the deal was already done. And so they were bringing in a lot of military-age men into the community. I mean, we're not blind, we're not stupid, we're not obtuse. We know what's going on. But unfortunately, the people who run this city, they don't care what the people think. So they started putting them into quiet residential neighborhoods like Washington Park, middle-class black neighborhoods. We're still pushing back. We don't want them here. The crime rate has gone up since they've been here. That's a fact. Nobody wants to talk about it, but we live it every day.
Let's go to the next lady.
So you have these immigrants coming in. If you need to flee where you live, yeah, come in. But don't neglect your own children. Yeah. You're giving money. All of a sudden, you come up with all this money. You found all this money, to throw at their needs and stuff. Our kids need a line in these bills or whatever. There needs to be a line in there that at-risk children get the same type of accommodations, modifications, and monies needed to help them access the curriculum too, okay?
Absolutely.
Do not leave our American children out.
And then this brother.
When the buses started rolling in, a lot of the American citizens, black citizens, did not realize what they were here for. But once that they got here, they started to bring them into the black community. And we started to do research, and that's when I found out that it was Kamala Harris that opened the borders up in California and allowed all the gangs, the Mexican gangs, to come across. And they took Compton and all the other black cities, similar to what we're seeing across the United States today.
You know what's interesting? I guarantee you that all of these people that are in this particular short documentary are all Democratic voters and have voted for these people all of their life. This is what they've done. And guess what? They have literally seen themselves being replaced, even in middle-class neighborhoods. Now, you heard one element in this documentary which refers to migrant crime. They have seen their neighborhoods in which they've invested in a home, bought a home, purchased a home, being overtaken by migrants who are using the resources from the taxpayers of Chicago and then commit crimes. Let me give you an example. I've been living in Uganda right now for 2 years straight since 2022. I've been here. I've enjoyed my time. I have immigrated to this country, not for a crisis in America where I'm starting over. No, I'm an investor and I do business here. But just imagine me coming to Uganda and I'm using Ugandans' taxpayers' money. I'm in Ugandans' neighborhoods committing crime. We're not saying that all migrants do this, but let's say I'm in that group. I'm committing crime. I'm causing problems. I'm taking away from their resources, and their people are paying me to be here, and I'm being disrespectful, and I'm driving down the property value. I'm doing all of these things. What do you think would be my outcome? I can tell you. It most likely would not be pretty. There is no way that anybody can allow that in this country. I can assure you, not even in Kenya too. No, you're going to come as an immigrant, but you're going to bring first of all, your money. You're going to bring your skill set. You're going to bring your good attitude, and you're going to leave your problems back home where you found them. Otherwise, you're going to get dismissed or even worse. Now, that's how it should be for America. Again, you're going to have immigrants that come to America, but it should be the immigrants that have something to offer. All right. Immigrants that can work, immigrants that can do some form of contribution to the labor force. How many times have we seen so many stories of immigrants creating some level of crime against women or against, whoever else? And to be honest, it's sad because why? If you decide that you question this, like, yo, this is not right. Our people, should be getting something for their vote. You got your Roland Martins out there who are silent on the migrant issue. They will jump you. These guys will literally castigate you. Had you seen what happened to Jermaine Dupri? They destroyed Jermaine Dupri for admitting that Kamala Harris told him his hands were tied when it came to black people. But again, she's wanting your money with no agenda for blacks, but she would love your money. There's black men for Kamala Harris. There's black women for Kamala Harris. And guess what? But Kamala Harris ain't for your ass. And then when you find out that they don't want to do anything for you in 2024 and then 2028, when everybody else gets something, when the migrants get something, the LGBTQ get something, the Jews continue to get something, Asians get something, and that's not a problem. Just like the sister said earlier in the video, she doesn't mind if people come to the community. A lot of black folks are open to that. But why do you neglect your own? And when you talk about reparations, white people, Democratic or Republican, tend to be against it. That's the situation. They would rather, and there's a poll, maybe we can find out, where you will see that you had a lot of people on this Twitter poll in which they would rather give money to Ukraine, who is not helping the United States do anything, fund the war in Ukraine, than give it to African Americans who actually pay taxes in the country, who actually have went to college in the country, who actually developed industries in the country, who are actually 20% of the military and all of that, and police forces and whatever you want to talk about. It's crazy. It's insane. And if people want to continue to vote to be replaced, I assure you, go to the voting blocks. Hey, swing the bat for Kamala Harris. But look at these people who have bought homes, who are homeowners, who are now seeing their neighborhoods most likely go down in value for real estate, who are seeing people getting resources from another community that they have not worked for, living in their country, living in their neighborhoods. Some of these people are afraid to go outside at nighttime for fear of getting robbed. And then you tell me, is that okay with you? You tell me, do you find joy in that? And do you want somebody to come and do that in your neighborhood? Because if you vote for it, all you're saying is, yes, you do think that it's fine. It's great. It's beautiful that they do this. This is okay. Because you don't have an agenda. You don't care. Just vote for Kamala blindly and do what they tell you to do. Or you don't want to be the cool person and say, you know what, hey, I don't want to vote, or I want to vote for Trump. I want to vote for the Green Party or be independent. Nope. Let me just get in line and continue to see myself struggle and others. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy, Rudy Jackson, back at it again with another episode of King Ganda. We're out.
Kamala Harris revealed a new recipe that will make you want to vomit. I'm on the verge of gagging just thinking about it. Tim Walz dodged an easy question from the press, just like he dodged taking care of his state in the middle of the George Floyd riots of 2020. And Kamala Harris is auditioning new accents on the campaign trail. We'll get to all of that and much more in today's video. But first, we turn to Detroit, where Kamala Harris failed to fill up a gymnasium, a high school gymnasium. Just take a look at all of these empty seats. Now, keep in mind that we are only 64 days out from the general election. She can't even fill all the seats in this high school gymnasium.
That's pathetic. But I got to hear the lies from Shoe Shining Willie D. Willie D, put the buff rag down and get up off your knees. Willie Dennis, what the hell is wrong with you? Shell of yourself, man. Get yourself together, Jack. Lied to his people today. Before I came on live, I seen him lying in the video talking about Kamala Harris surging in the polls. Yeah, to the Greek freaks. But if she was surging in the polls, Willie Dennis, why the hell? Where's that? Show me. Now, this is her speaking to a union. Now, remember, when you see her rally, then you see Trump speaking to a union, you're going to know Willie D and all the rest of those liars should be ashamed of themselves.
This is a rally for union members in Michigan, and we all know, based on her previous rallies, that she's bussed in union members. So even with bussing them in, you see all these empty seats, all that empty space on the floor. Compare that to former President Donald Trump, who, in the middle of deep blue New York City, which is pretty much as liberal as it gets, with the exception of, like, I don't know, Washington, D.C. and San Francisco, was able to pull this crowd of union workers organically. This was in the middle of his trial in New York City. Look at all these union workers.
Come on, man.
Filling the streets.
Come on, man. Come on, man. That lady couldn't fill up a small gymnasium, but these clowns want us to believe she's surging in the polls. Trump, gymnasium too small, man. He can't get all his people in there. That man outside filling up outside streets with people.
Again, totally organic. They didn't have to be bussed in. This wasn't an official campaign event. Much more energy, much more organic support for President Trump compared to Kamala Harris. Now, during this rally, Kamala brought out multiple accents that she, auditioned in front of the crowd. This isn't the first time she's done this, but it's funny that whenever she goes to areas that are quote unquote more urban, she pulls out this fake accent that she doesn't usually talk with. Here's what she sounded like.
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
What's her sister girl talking? You better thank her.
Because what we know.
I mean, come on. We all know that that's not what she actually sounds like. And don't forget, she was raised in both California and Canada. And I don't know about you, but
imagine trying to talk to her. Imagine being in a courtroom and you talking like, you better thank her. She, Your Honor, just listen to the defendant, the speech, the vocabulary. See, they would tear you to pieces if that's how you was talking. You better thank her. She telling us she won't be the president of the United States, but what he pointing out is that's an act she put on. Sometimes she around union people. She thinks this is a low income poverty line of people, so she don't want to sound all Princeton, Yale, Harvard elitist, which she is.
Never met someone from Canada or from California who actually talks like that. And speaking of how she was raised, don't forget her father and her mother, they weren't blue collar workers. These were highly educated people. Her dad, I believe, had a PhD, and he actually was a Marxist and taught her in Marxist philosophies. So that's why we shouldn't be surprised when she talks about price gouging or gauging, how she, talks about it like that. She is almost on the verge of not hiding that she's a socialist. Now, she also pulled out a slightly different accent, talking about how we're 64 days away from the general election. And of course, her signature laugh,
Remember, that's what the Republicans, they use talking points too, which is disgusting. She's a socialist. So they think that people are so turned off by that. But when you go into her locking up black people, keeping them in jail for minor crimes, that's not a socialist policy. Not want to release them because the prison said they needed the labor. That's not this Marxist socialist policy they keep labeling her. She is a chameleon with no policy. She's willing to do anything. And I don't know if I have to email the Republicans and let them know what the hell are they doing. They need to just tell the truth. She's a chameleon. She's not a Marxist socialist. Or she wouldn't have a history of doing black people like that in California. That wouldn't be there. Marxist socialists don't do that.
Miraculously returned after it disappeared and hid in a hole during her CNN interview.
Let's just get through the next 64 days. How about
Totally convincing.
When
yeah.
people saying that is bigots and racists who really don't give a fuck how we was treated. And then I hear other black content creators, they say that. And then I'm like, when you call her Marxist socialist, you just disrespecting all the black people that she stepped on and humiliated. There was no, it's crazy to me. That's why I be like, man, these people, that's why I'm glad it got this channel so I can sort that all out for y'all, let y'all understand. Don't pick up that motherfucking propaganda that Kamala Harris is a Marxist socialist. The hell out of here, nigga. She trying to kill people on death row and shit like that. You crazy.
Well, Kamala Harris, as if that Detroit rally wasn't embarrassing enough from her fake accents to the empty space all over the gymnasium floor. And I would like to point out, notice there were a ton of tables, right? Round tables covering the floor. So that took up a lot of space too. That, I think, was a political maneuver, a great, I mean, I'll give her team kudos. That was a great ploy to make it look like it was more filled than it actually was because those tables took up so much space. But if you remove the tables, man, that auditorium would have been empty. Well, she's revealed this new recipe of how she makes collard greens. And I'm sorry, it's a little gag-inducing. Listen to this.
Right, Marlon? So I know how to make a mean pot of greens. In fact, people used to ask me to make greens for them for Christmas. One year, I had so many that I had to wash that we ended up washing them in the bathtub. So I am not playing around. So what you got?
Well, apparently it wasn't just 1 year. Well, she, according to her, does this multiple years for.
Who ate these collard greens? Who ate? I know nobody in her Jewish family ate the collard greens. She don't be around her Indian Irish, Hindu Irish father people. I don't think they eat collard greens. They're her Hindu Indian mother's people. They don't eat collard greens. Salute. So what's all this collard green business? More bullshit. And that's just like Trump saying, yeah, man, I'm finna go get me some chicken. You know what I'm talking about? They give me some of that watermelon. Man, I'm gonna get a big old gallon of that Kool-Aid. What? Black people be like outraged. The Democrats, what? How dare you say you're gonna go get chicken, watermelon, and Kool-Aid? This lady is talking about she eating collard greens. That's a slap in the face to black people in the South who grew up, they like collard greens. But that's bullshit. This lady has been nowhere near no damn collard greens, man.
For this Christmas party for a friend. And to me, that's really gross. Washing collard greens in a bathtub, washing your food in the same place where you wash your stinky spider web. Really gross. According to the Washington Post, fungi and mold can also grow in these perpetually moist environments. About 10% of the bacteria you find in bathtubs comes from fecal matter. Again, your stinky spider web. And it can get dried into the bathtub ring. And it's not just the fecal matter. It's the fact that soap residue and all these other cleaning chemicals, they attach onto the walls of the bathtub. And this is apparently where she washed food for a dinner party for her friends. Total red flag. I mean, if you're not even going to consider the safety of the people you're cooking for a party.
She don't got no friends that eat no damn collard greens. That's the nonsense. If you ever around her say, what's up on some collard greens? Like, huh? This is not the hood. This is not the block. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's it. Please, boy, ask for some collard greens around these people and see how they look at you. You better say, do you got some Grey Poupon around here, some caviar? These people ain't seen no damn collard greens. That lady grew up on Grey Poupon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
How can you trust her to take care of the health of the rest of the nation? Now, here's a longer video of her explaining how she prepares her collard greens. And again, she refers to soaking them in a giant bathtub, which again is where she washes her stinky spider web.
Trump was talking about how he liked his watermelon chicken and the different assortment of Kool-Aid that he liked. The Democrats would be going off, but here this lady cosplaying black, how she like her collard greens. She got, remember Hillary? I got hot sauce in my bag. This is disgusting. This is a hot sauce in my bag moment. If you gotta say that type of bullshit, you know you ain't from the culture, man. That's serious. That ain't nothing. Like, well, we don't even talk about that type of BS. But when you try to bring it up, you trying to relate. Come on, that's disgusting. Collard greens.
I have a friend who had a Christmas party, Christmas Eve every year, and she asked me to make the greens for a party every year. And I am not lying to you that I would.
Who eat collard greens on Christmas? Are you busted? What a joke. And you said New Year's Eve, a busted Christmas party, collard greens. Who? Lady, you is a liar. Your whole reputation's on fire. Who eat collard greens? You ain't had no damn collard green Christmas party.
Make so many greens that I need to wash them in the bathtub. I'm telling you the truth.
So how do you make your greens? Do you put turkey in them? Do you
bacon.
Nice. My grandma
I do bacon.
She puts
garlic.
vinegar.
I put white vinegar. Yes. I do. So I start with, I slice up my garlic. But no, first I chop up the bacon and get all that fat going. Then I put garlic, some chili peppers.
Yes.
And then a lot of water and a little chicken stock, and I let it go for a while.
See, this like a preacher. She like a preacher, right? And this dude, usually the pastor, I'm gonna heal somebody today. I'm finna let the Lord's magic work. Who needs to be healed? And some dude, he limp up to the pastor. Oh, pastor, I ain't been able to walk in over a decade. I ain't been able to work, pastor. My wife left me. I ain't been able to be a man. Pastor say today, you be able to walk, get a job, and you will remarry your wife. Put his hands on, then the dude get to doing the moonwalk. Oh, pastor, I can moonwalk. Now I'm definitely going to get a new job, and I'm definitely going to get my wife back. So here's Pastor Harris, and this is her dude pretending that he need healing. Oh, what type of college? Y'all went over this skit before y'all try to run it on the people. This is BS.
Before I put the greens in. And then, right, so you get that going and all that flavor. And then I put the greens in for a couple hours. Then I do vinegar. And then I cheat and do a little Tabasco.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, but Tabasco, of all, like I like Louisiana hot sauce, but Tabasco has that right amount of vinegar. Yeah. And that's how I do my greens.
I see why you get invited every year.
A few things about this clip. Number one, I get that I've cooked collard greens a few times, and I get that they shrink whenever you cook them, right? It's sort of like spinach or most vegetables, with the exception of, like carrots or something. But they shrink. What size pot do you have to be able to fit a bathtub size worth of greens into them? Man, I mean, is she making this in a cauldron over a fireplace? What is she using to cook these? That's point number one. I would like to make. Point number two
don't play with us about our traditional.
She's barely taken any questions from the press, right? She did that one CNN interview, which was very.
No better than to play with them Jewish dishes, man. Please, them people quit donating. You don't play with people's culture. Now she's sitting there lying with this skit, talking about how she prepared collard greens. Who the fuck has a big time collard green? Find me the collard green. You can't find collard green conversations on motherfucking YouTube. But here they think we're so stupid that we'll sit around and have some big collard green conversation. Like we sit around, how you like your chicken fried, sir? What? This is racist as hell from Kamala. This is racist. And we're not going to let this go. Let me sit here and talk, man. Hell no.
Very softball, almost a T-ball like. The questions were queued up for her with multiple choice answers. You can't get any easier than that. And now she's spending her free time talking about recipes?
And anybody
is she really this dense? Does she think that no one really is interested in what her actual policies are? What her agenda is, what vision she has for the country. It's almost like Joe Biden going to the ice cream shop and the reporter's asking him, what flavor of ice cream are you eating? Or how was your bike ride today? Or how was the beach at your Delaware vacation home? I mean, it just totally ridiculous. Now, Tim Walz, of course, there was breaking news this morning talking about the terrible hostage situation in Israel.
Yeah, well, nobody, man, please, man. Jewish people don't eat collard greens. Indian people don't eat collard greens. Y'all never forget that's what she is. Collard greens. They sitting there thinking, see, they're fooling some elderly black people. Oh, see, she can relate. Well, bullshit. Yeah, was she eating some? Show us her. Remember when she was in the kitchen with that Indian lady and she said, a lot of people are shocked to find out you're Indian. They're talking about Indian dishes. Where's her making these collard greens, eating these collard greens, enjoying these collard greens? Put a bowl of collard greens in this lady's face. She'll damn near throw up.
The sad part is people are claiming that Trump is disrespecting these families when they're the ones out of their own mouth saying that they appreciate Donald Trump for what he did. It's a contradiction that I can't seem to understand.
Vice President Harris.
Vice President Harris.
Vice President Harris. My name is Steve Nakui. I'm the father of Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui.
My name is Jim McCollum. I am the Gold Star father of United States Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley McCollum.
This is Mark Schmitz, Gold Star father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz.
My name is Darren Hoover, and I'm the Gold Star father of United States Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover.
My daughter-in-law, Sergeant Nicole Leanne G., was killed in the Afghanistan exit at Abbey Gate.
Our kids were murdered because of your administration.
You were not at Dover for the dignified transfer, and no time have you reached out to me to offer your condolences, to offer thank you for Kareem's sacrifice and service. You have 13 families who have been waiting over 3 years to so much as get a phone call, to so much as hear our kids' names said aloud.
You failed for 3 years and 8 months to acknowledge our kids.
Where were you and Joe Biden on August 26, 2024? Nowhere near Arlington Cemetery. You couldn't be bothered to be with us or even say our kids' names, just as you had done for the last 3 years.
Vice President Harris, I ask you, why won't you return a call and explain to us how you call my daughter-in-law's death a success? President Trump has called. President Trump shows up. But President Trump takes the time to hear our loved ones' stories.
We invited him to be there.
These are the only memories we get to make with our son, and it is you who is playing politics and trying to detract from our memories made that day.
President Trump has been there for us. He's been a rock for us. He showed compassion for us, and he showed he truly cares for the families that truly do know what the ultimate sacrifice really is.
I just don't understand how people become so enraged when you bring up the simplest facts that violate their, ideology in some sort of way. Somebody wrote right here, liberals don't care about truth and honor. They care about power and validation of their sins. And the reason why the stereotype is being pushed here is because you have the Gold Star family, what took place under the Biden administration, and no acknowledgement from these people whatsoever. And then you have somebody like Trump, whom, will go and say what's up, and then he go and say what's up, hear these families out, hear their stories, and, actually sit there and spend time with them. Not saying that it will reverse the outcome in any kind of way, but it's just showing this concern and it's, love for the American people, and it's being perceived as some sort of photo op. That's always going to be the case, man. With anything these days, when he's already somebody you don't mess with, it is what it is. Somebody says, God bless the Gold Star families. Definitely, because these families are hurting, and it's bigger than just Trump or Biden or any of that. The bigger picture is that there are people who lost their lives and their families that are affected by this, and all I can say is these people didn't deserve to pass away, man. It was sad and it was unnecessary, in my opinion. Somebody wrote, I stand with the Gold Star families. God bless our troops, past and present. Amen to that. Thanks for supporting the Gold Star family for sure. And Elon Musk, he's somebody who actually is in support of this as well. He's the one who shared this video from Donald Trump, which is an incredible ad, if you ask me. Now, you have people that may be watching and going, you already have your bias. You like Trump, so everything can be perceived. And we don't really know what Kamala said, such and such, such and such. And I go, okay, yeah, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I want to go off of the people who are the source
You know, I don't like people. I like the source, you know, just so we can. I don't like to create my own assumption and things of that nature. Anyhow, I'm saying all this to say, Kamala Harris just ended a presidential campaign by slandering the Gold Star families. Quote, why won't you return a call and explain to us how you call my daughter-in-law's death a success?
Revolutionary salute to our Queen Shanna G for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is way of life. Absolutely appreciate the donation and love, Queen. Salute.
End quote. This has to be one of the worst campaign mistakes in U.S. history.
Vice President Harris, my name is Christy Shamblin. My daughter-in-law, Sergeant Nicole Leanne G., was killed in the Afghanistan exit at Abbey Gate on August 26, 2021. This year, for the 3rd year anniversary of her murder, we welcome President Donald J. Trump to Arlington to lay a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier with our family and to visit Nicole graveside. President Trump and his team were respectful. They listened to our stories and didn't talk much at all. We welcomed them that day and they were comfort to our family. Vice President Harris, I ask you, why won't you return a call and explain to us how you call my daughter-in-law's death a success? Vice President Harris, why will you not express your condolences yourself? Why have we never heard from you? And finally, why would you take a day where we celebrated the death of our loved one and use it to disparage not only them, but us? President Trump has called, President Trump shows up, and President Trump takes the time to hear our loved ones' stories. Why won't you do the same?
This is honestly just extremely unfortunate. And I want to make sure I provide some clarification because, you know, you got people who exaggerate and do all that. We ain't trying to do none of that. We're trying to get straight to the truth. And that's it. Kamala Harris I don't have any clips of her actually saying that any specific unaliving in that scenario was a success. The problem came in when she said that the withdrawal was the whole Afghan, it was all a success. And that was being interpreted like, what? You calling this a success? And I lost my child, some people lost their sons, some people lost their, daughter. Like, what? Really? That's a success? So that's what people are truly offended by when it comes to that. Then, in addition to that, it's more, man. We have more people from the Donald Trump ad that are speaking out against this horrific tragedy, man. It says, if we had honest journalists rather than Democrat propagandists, the world would be all over. I mean, this would be all over TV. Yet nothing. The media and Kamala would rather attack these families. It's crazy. Let's check it out.
This is Mark Schmitz, Gold Star father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz. Here we are on a beautiful holiday weekend day. I got to stop what I'm doing, spending time with what's left of my family, to address a heinous, vile, and disgusting post put out by Kamala Harris, trying to incite those that don't follow the truth that President Trump was in Arlington as a political stunt. Shows you how much you know about the 13 families. We invited him to be there. Groundwork was put into place by Congressman Ice's office to make sure we followed protocol. Why did we want Trump there? It wasn't to help his political campaign. We wanted a leader. That explains why you and Joe didn't get a call. Imagine for a second that your kid is killed, and there's a president of the United States willing to take you under his wing and listen to you. That's what we found in President Trump. Certainly not you, and certainly not Joe Biden. You have 13 families who have been waiting over 3 years to so much as get a phone call, to so much as hear our kids' names, said aloud in the halls of Congress, at a State of the Union, hell, anything. The irony behind your post that you give a rat's ass about our military or our veterans, Jared's brothers and sisters in arms, the rest of the 12, their brothers and sisters in arms, is an outright lie. We're living proof of that. You're despicable. You have zero business running this country. And I pray to God, Americans wake the hell up and get your ass out of office. You have spit in our face for the last time.
And sadly, what you realize is they have to hide all of this in order to maintain her image, to justify how got the 150 million post that says right here. And it would be a shame if anyone shared this compilation of Gold Star families calling out, in which we played in the very beginning. Yeah, man, it's quite sad. It's over 20 minutes of footage. I was only able to get to a few different ones. But the Gold Star families have been through enough, okay? They have been through enough. Somebody said they don't report anything negative about Kamala. It's obvious. It's awful. It's so dishonest. Somebody says, honest. You told these families to say that they invited the Biden administration to the ceremony, and now being reported with two families confirming that they didn't. More to be exposed. This was all fabricated by the Trump campaign. Here comes the truth, somebody said. Right. I don't think this is definitely not true, considering the man literally just told you how it all went down.
I think it's a stupid question, but this question irks my nerves. What have Republicans done for you? Let's be very clear. The difference between me and y'all is I don't need these people to do anything for me. It's my job, no matter who's in the office, to get up and make it happen for myself and my children, period.
Facts.
All I need them to do is run this country. But one thing that I think everybody can agree on is the demonic Democrats for my life. I believe in my morals, my values, my beliefs. God first, my children immediately after. Period. The demonic Democrats are godless and they hate children. Clearly.
What happened to man in there? Well, I guess she said it's for her life, so we just gonna roll with that.
They're running a campaign on aborting babies, and then they want to abort babies up until a mom gives birth, bro. That is satanic. I will never get with that. I don't care what the government doing for you. I don't care what them demonic Democrats doing for you, that you have to go against everything. I don't care. I will never subscribe to it. I will never subscribe to kids, the little girl getting her body mutilated to be a little boy. And
I think that she's right. I'm gonna get to the rest of the video, and I always like to give credit to the content creators. So make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. The best time to join the Patreon is the beginning of the month. There's some phenomenal stuff. If you didn't watch the last Sock Club video, then you're really missing out. Also, Teach Henley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off life. Shout out to Teach Henley for holding us down. Make sure y'all get that. Ladies, get it for the fellas. Fellas, don't wait for the ladies to get it for you. A couple different things that I want to address that she said already. The first thing that I want to address is the whole logic behind they're asking you, what are they going to do for you? I do not like that question because I think that is absolutely stupid. Now, when we say, what are they going to do for you? It's additional context, right? And I'm going to explain to you the difference from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party really quickly. Cliff notes, all right? Democratic Party tie you to the party by continuing to give you the things that's the worst for you. They incentivize your children or the women to leave the homes. They also leverage the family court system in order to empower them to do the thing that's not for you. That also incentivizes people to break up the home. Then they gave you Section 8, social services, overtax you in order to make sure that they support a lot of these migrants. They have agendas and things, and then they basically stay in power by continuing to give you scraps and crumbs that's not best for you, but instead of opening it up and incentivizing you to be able to create for yourself, is what Republicans do. Republicans believe in less government, smaller government. You shouldn't have, for example, reproductive rights, that whole argument being hoarded over by the federal government. We want less government. We don't want socialism. We don't want communism. We want less government. And what that does is it kicks it back down to the states. So how you vote, and based off of whatever is happening in the legislature in your state, that's what then determines what laws are put into place in order for you to be able to do what you want to do with your body, and so on and so forth. And so it should be a state responsibility, not government overreach. And that's where Republicans largely stand. They're not looking to ban it on a federal level. They don't want to be involved in it on a federal level. And so I'm not interested in the government giving me anything. I want the government to get out of my way. I want them to not tax me so much. I want them to not give my dollars over to Ukraine. I want them to not let illegal immigrants come into the country and then get my federal tax dollars to do what they want to do with it. I want less taxes, smaller government. I also want them to make sure that they protect our American soil and run our government the way it's supposed to. We had no new wars through 2016 through 2020. And I want them to stop manufacturing issues that then tie us back to the Democratic Party. The feminism, homosexuality movement as far as the alphabet community, migrant movement, hijacking the civil rights era, affirmative action, all of that is bullshit. It's all bullshit. I don't care what you do in your house. I want you to stay out of minds. You shouldn't be putting all of these books inside of these classrooms. That's not conducive for our children. Our children are the ones that's going to pay for the sins of their father. So when we talk about the difference between a Democrat and a Republican Party, that is the big differences. They tie you to things by promising you things that they don't deliver, and then they underhand and underswipe you and then continue to ruin your life. The other one is saying, listen, we need to do the fundamentals, protect our borders, give you freedom of speech, all of this stuff, but don't have too much government overreach in a general, sum. But I also think that she's right as far as the fact that I can never agree with a party that's so egregious that they have a Planned Parenthood mobile vans and whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Whatever they had, tents and all of that stuff, pulling up to the Democratic National Convention and they putting it in front of y'all face and acting like it's cool. I would never rock out with somebody that absolutely goes against what we stand for the most part, and biblical scriptures and principles, as far as repurposing even a flag, even a rainbow. They repurpose it from being a covenant with God in order to be something that represents something that's the opposite of what God wanted. And it don't mean that we don't sin, but we don't just throw it in each other's face and say this is right and that's wrong. That's crazy. And I don't want you to force your ideologies on me. But let me let her cook.
I would never be for a little boy getting his body mutilated to become a little girl. I would never be for the delusions that they're trying to now put into kids' minds. When Obama came and did for his people, and no offense to the LGBTQ, but like I said, I believe in God. So I believe in man and woman, period. But they forced other people's delusions or what other people believe or what other people believe that they are. That's not for me to argue with it. Whatever you believe you are is whatever you believe you are. But Obama came in, made that happen for his people, and then the moment you believe in man and woman, and then you have a man thinking he's a woman and a woman thinking she's a man, and let you not believe that. Now you all over the internet being called transphobic. No, I don't hate you. Right. I just don't believe what you believe in. I don't believe in your ideologies, and I think that's okay. But they did that, and they made you conform to that. I draw the line at conforming to that with the kids. Bro, they did that with adults. Who cares? There's no way I'm going to be okay with them taking these little kids' minds, period. They use y'all ignorance to push their satanic agendas. Y'all's ignorance to push their satanic agendas. Y'all ignorance to say you believe in God, but you're pushing satanic ignorance because you're scared or you're fearful. And we all know fear is not of God either. We all know that hate is not of God either. But they use your ignorance against you. And now you're conforming to their satanic agendas. You're conforming to the way of the world. I'm not doing that. I don't care. So I don't care what the Republicans do. Long as they don't believe in mutilating kids, long as they bring somewhat God back to this wicked earth, I don't care. Y'all know how it used to be God bless America? Them demonic Democrats are trying to make it America. Y'all remember it used to be one nation under God? Them demonic Democrats are trying to make it one nation, no God. I would never conform to that, period. And people been in office for 12 of the last 16 years, and they still haven't done anything for you. Y'all are still waiting for them to do something for you. The 4 years that man was in office, Trump was in office, it was peace in the Middle East.
Talk about it. No new wars like a mug, right?
Now it's nothing but chaos. And then you let Obama get on the stage and say we don't need another 4 years of chaos and all this extra stuff that they're causing. They're causing all these wars.
Yep,
the stuff that's coming to the States right now, these Venezuelan gangs, I'm going to let y'all in on the secret. That's them.
She's 100% right. And so what you see at your doorstep is largely based off of how it is that they supported or lack of support for closing off our borders. And they fought Trump tooth and nail in order to get this into y'all doorstep. If he wasn't president in 2016, then y'all would have had it even faster than that. But they fought him tooth and nail in order to get him to get y'all this. And then they gave y'all this, and they opened up the border, and they let these people overrun y'all, and they gave you all of the stuff that they fighting against. And so I don't trust him either. I don't care how much y'all like him or whatever it is. Listen, man, I don't trust these people. I think this woman is absolutely spot on. I'm curious as to what y'all think. Again, make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Also, teach him.
Kamala Harris running for president has brought out the worst in our cable news personalities. Exhibit A, Stephen A. Smith.
He's supposed to be in jail, right? He's supposed to owe nearly $500 million, right? The bottom line is he's been the Republican nominee since 2016. And he's been through a myriad of debates. And on top of all of that, he got all of this law, these legal issues descending down upon him. And the people have spoken. The Republicans said they want him.
Yes.
All of them. Nobody said that about Kamala Harris until July 21st.
Salute, Queen.
So you don't get to just skate to the election and have a debate September 10th on ABC, and you know what? We may barely see you. Nah. Why also, ladies and gentlemen, Biden wasn't doing a bunch of interviews prior to the debate on June 27th, and then what happened thereafter with July and him stepping aside. So we have a White House that hasn't been active participants in communicating with the fourth estate.
And we know why that is. Because neither one of them are capable of really communicating with the fourth estate. That's why. It can't.
Salute, Queen.
Or suffer the repercussions of being incompetent, of being unable to perform at a high level, and it being exposed to the entire world. All that money that Kamala Harris was able to raise, she needs more of it. And it comes with strings.
Spanning months. Why are you running this country? Nah. I want you, Kamala Harris, to go out there and whip the you know what of Donald Trump. That's what I want. Because it shouldn't be that hard. Who's going to vote for him is going to vote for him. Just like the left is going to vote for you. But us independent.
The fact that he uses this type of terminology to define Democrats is just goofy. That's what I say, man. That's my biggest knock on Stephen A. He don't know what he's talking about. True lefties vote Cornel West, Dr. Jill Stein, Claudia De La Cruz. A couple of them looked at RFK like, oh, I don't know. Then they heard him on Israel. They was like, yeah. But nah, Kamala Harris supporters are not left. Come on, man.
Independents? Yo, you can't take him? That's like Tommy Hearns or Mike Tyson getting into the ring with somebody with a glass jaw. You should be able to take them. We know they could fight too, but once they get clipped by somebody the likes of you, they supposed to fall.
What are you even talking about? See, that's the thing, man. Like, I'm wondering if Stephen A is doing like a Jedi mind trick. Like, look, trying to get Kamala to come out and get destroyed. We all know if Kamala Harris is asked more than 3 questions in a row, it's over. I'm not saying no one's in the house, but I'm saying the lights are on a timer. And once you knock once and she answers, right? If you knock twice, she'll answer. The third knock, it's over. I don't care what the topic is. She goes, she's only 2 levels deep on anything. Okay? That's it. And she's been that way her entire career. It's not an age thing. It's a Kamala Harris thing. She was that way before she was VP. That's who she is.
You prosecutor! You should be able to handle this because of him. Say Nikki Haley or somebody you're going against. This is him. Shouldn't be hard.
I don't think she could beat Nikki Haley either. Sorry. Nikki Haley was a governor. She got decent command of the issues. I mean, she didn't understand what racism was about. She didn't know slavery was because of race. She didn't think that had something to do with it. Or the Civil War had something to do. Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with slaves. Yeah, it had to do with keeping them. Dumb. She said she knew better. She just said it because she won certain votes, and it didn't help her. See where it got her? But
that was my point. That is my point. And that's going to be my point until we see her campaigning the way presidential candidates normally campaign. She's got my vote.
I hate that about it. She's got my vote. I'm going to say all these things that are highly critical of her, that are going to question her competency level. It's going to question her decision-making skills. It's going to question even if she has a right to be in that position as the nominee. And then I'm going to say, with my tail firmly tucked between my butt cheeks, she's got my vote anyway. How could you not have policies up on your website, Kamala? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Explain it to me, Kamala. How could you not have policies? How could you not be able to go through your policy agenda? Donald Trump could go through his policy agenda. He could explain his positions. So could RFK Jr. So could Dr. Cornel West. I've had them on my show. I mean, don't worry. I'm going to vote for you anyway because I'm a hypocrite. Humongous hypocrite who wants to keep his money. I'm a gigantic, ginormous hypocrite. And I'm loud for no reason. And I don't know anything. But I'm going to call up Chris Cuomo right after this session. He's going to tell me all the things I got wrong. And then I'm going to come out and get him wrong again because it's me. Stephen A. Smith, man. Salute. You don't even have to tell people who you're voting for. It's really none of their business. Speak truth to power. Speak truth to power and be out, man. Sprinkle some facts on them and get out of there. But if you're going to be the person in the line, if you're going to be in the lion's den, you're going to be talking, don't undercut everything you said by saying, I'm going to go with you anyway. Because I'm really trying to help you as I point out every flaw that you have. As I yell to you about every flaw that you have and every reason why you should not be the person, then I'm going to say, but I'm going to pick you anyway because I just want you to be the person.
Because I can't vote for him. But I don't want to vote for her just because I don't want to vote for him. I want to vote for her because she shows me she's the one.
See, there's people have this. People have a sickness, man. These people, I want to help you. Listen, if you cannot stand either one of these candidates, guess what? I understand. I'm in the same boat. Guess what? You don't have to vote for either one of them. 40% of America doesn't vote. We got a lot of people. You realize how many 40 million people, 40%. Right? So you wouldn't be nowhere near the realm. More people don't vote for the president than, I don't know, man, entire Latin America, in certain countries in Latin America, probably the entirety of Guatemala. I don't know, man. A lot of people don't vote. A lot of 40% of Americans don't vote. Hell, some people question how many people voted in the last election. I mean, it was kind of weird that Joe Biden got more votes than Barack Obama. Yeah, when I hear people, and don't get me wrong, Trump was wrong to do what he did, and I understand it's really unpopular. Steve would be very bad for Steven's career to be like, hey, I support Trump anyway. He'd go out like the guy, like the guy that played Hercules. The last time you saw him in anything. But anyway, what the hell? I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it's a few people like John Voight who've been able to have a career and support Trump. But my point is here, guys, look, man, it's a lot of screwy stuff that's gone on in our elections. So a lot of people don't have faith in it. I am still trying to figure out, how did the first black president, half-black president, how did he get less votes than Joe Biden? Or how did Joe Biden get more votes? Is that wrong, the question? I guess it is. Anyway, back to you, Stephen A. Smith. Man, so you can vote. You could just choose this. You could choose the couch. You could choose the couch, or you could choose Dr. Cornel West, Dr. Jill Stein, Claudia De La Cruz, or you can write in Tim Black. Hell, you could even write in, Philip Drummond. I don't know, Gary Coleman. Posthumously, he would probably enjoy that. You can write in anybody. In some states, I don't know, depending on your state. I'm just saying, like, there are options. You don't have to go, shit sandwich to shit pie. You could be like, neither one, I'm good. Sounds delicious, but I think I'm good. You can do that.
And anything that she hasn't shown, I'm not even blaming her. I'm saying the party has paved the way and greased the skids.
He said anything that she hasn't shown, he's not even blaming her. Folks, when Kamala Harris does something, it's not just Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has a team. It's like a corporation, an organization, okay? Joe Biden wasn't just Joe Biden. Joe Biden was him and about 50 other mofos, okay? They got a squad. They got press, they got general counsel, they got people, key grips and lighting people. I'm just saying it's not just by herself on an island doing all this stuff. Now, that's me. That's what I do. That's not what the president or the vice president does. They don't wing it.
Revolutionary salute to our Queen Eve to Eve for the donation to the war chest. She say matching shining G's, $1 chat support King Y. I appreciate the donation to the war chest. Queen, revolution is the way of life. Absolutely appreciate the salute.
Nah, give her all the smoke, Johnson. She deserves all the smoke. Okay? All the smoke you can give her. Because she does have options. Somebody need to be fired. Expeditiously. Couple more minutes.
We can't let that continue to happen. You got to show up and earn it. I'm a sports guy.
We know. Listen, man. You're suffering a delusion now. You're delusional. You think that Kamala Harris doesn't perform well because she doesn't know that she needs to. And dog, if you said, Tim, get out here, we're going to run, we're going to run 100 meter a day, I don't know, something, I would understand what you want me to do. It's just I can't get my body to physically do it in any amount of time that would be respectable. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kamala knows what you want to do. You say, Tim, sing that Earth, Wind, and Fire. Shining star for you to see. Now, what's the really hard one? Always There Forever. Sing Earth, Wind, and Fire is Always There Forever, Tim. And I would be like, yeah, I know the words. I know the words. But I'm no Philip Bailey, brother. Everybody would cut off. Everybody would turn their computers off. That's some bullshit. Well, my own mother would cut off the computer. Click. Swipe away. I understand. I know the song. I understand the activity. I understand what I'm being asked to do. I'm being asked to sing Always and Forever by Earth, Wind, and Fire. No, Heat Wave. I'm sorry. Heat Wave, guys. My bad. Heat Wave. I see it. It's the record with the fire in it. Heat Wave. Always and Forever. Not that song, man. I don't know why I was thinking. I was thinking Shining Star with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Okay, do that over, Tim. Now leave it in. It'll be funny. Everybody will correct me. Then the comments will be 11 comments. Listen, if you said, Tim Black, here goes $100,000 if you could sing Heat Waves Always and Forever. I'd be like, yeah. If you say sing it well, I'll be like, okay, I can't. Guess I don't get $100,000. You understand what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to tell you is that Kamala Harris understands what's required. She just can't do it. That's what you don't understand. She can't do it well. It's like a drunk person when the cops pull them over and make them walk the line. They can walk the line. It's just the line is not the line. Like they can walk. They just can't walk the line correctly. They can't walk the line because the way in which to prove they're not drunk. Okay? They can walk. They just can't stay on the line in order to avoid being arrested for drinking and driving or being under the influence. You understand what I'm saying? That's the difference. So stop talking as if Kamala Harris. Skip missed me with she doesn't get it and she needs to be told and it's unfortunate she's just not getting the proper direction and nah, man. They told her to use potty. Like it's like my 2-year-old granddaughter, man. Like to walk around with no diaper, no pull up on. I'm like, yo, where's your pull up? I don't know. You took it off. I don't know. She knows. Go get it. She go get it. It's not even wet. She just decided she didn't want to wear it. It's not a failure of understanding that pull-ups are supposed to be on your butt. You're supposed to wear them. She knows. Is that a lack of parenting? Going, hey, put your pull-up on. All right. Stephen A. Smith, you ain't got many more times to do this, man. You know, and look, and you know this too. I'm wasting my time telling you because you already know. As I stated, it's a strategy of yours to still be in the news cycle without being in the news cycle, you know, because you see money on the table, you're like, I know I shouldn't get that money, but I got to get that money. That's you, Stephen A.
We're going into the next story. And this one is about Cornel West. And it's about how the Democratic Party does not have this in the bag. I'm going to show you recent poll numbers from Nate Silver and his concerns along with this story as well. But they don't have it in the bag. Listen to this from Chuck Todd here. Shout out to Case Study QB. Listen to this quick clip, and then we're going to get into that interview from Cornel West. I'm going to show you they don't have this in the bag.
Kamala Harris still has to deal with Cornel West, who I think takes from her. Jill Stein takes from her. Kennedy takes from him, and anywhere he's on the ballot is harmful to Trump.
Our chief political analyst, Chuck Todd.
See? All right. So you heard what Chuck Todd said, but you continue to hear from other people like DNC chair Jamie Harrison that people like Jill Stein aren't serious, or these people don't matter. These third-party candidates don't matter. Well, if that's the case and they don't matter, then why are they so focused on them being a part of the race? Why are they removing them from the ballot? Why, during this discussion here with Laura Coates and Cornel West, why is Laura trying to get him to drop out of the race? Listen to this.
Look, don't call it a comeback, but look who's back on the ballot. RFK Jr. The Wisconsin State Election Commission today rejecting Kennedy's request to withdraw after he suspended his campaign. They're ruling once a candidate files nomination papers, they're on the ballot, quote, except in case of death. Now, another third-party candidate who can stay on the Wisconsin ballot, Cornel West. He's one of 3 third-party candidates now still in the race, and it's the first time that West has qualified for the ballot in a swing state. It caps a string of recent ballot victories for Dr. West. But sometimes elections can create some pretty strange bedfellows. Democrats have backed some of the ballot challenges against West. And it appears that the left wing, West has an ally in his corner, the Republican Party. Reports suggest that GOP operatives are aiding in West's quest to get on the ballot. Why? Well, West could possibly peel away voters from Harris. And in an election that could be decided on the margins, every single vote matters. But how they're doing it? Perhaps raising some eyebrows in Arizona, where West did not qualify. One voter told the Associated Press she didn't know people visiting her home to collect her signatures were Republican-aligned operatives, adding her signature was, quote, forged. Now, independent presidential candidate Cornel West joins me now, and he certainly has taken issue with the association of those who have done the latter of which we speak. Dr. West, good evening. I'm glad that you are here because I would love for you to address some of the things that are being said. In particular, Dr. West, you're being criticized as somehow a spoiler for Democrats specifically, in part because you have received Republican support to get on the ballot. What is your reaction to the criticism, and who do you think your supporters will ultimately vote for if you yourself were not on the ballot?
Now, let's all remember something. It has been quite a while since CNN has had Dr. West on. Remember when he first announced, he was on CNN, I think twice, when he first announced Democracy Now! As well. Fox News has had him on a couple of times, but it's been quite a while since he's been back on CNN. And all this time they say, oh, he's not really polling anything. It doesn't really matter. But then he got on the ballot in Wisconsin and Michigan. The Democrats fought to take him off the ballot in Wisconsin and Michigan. But from what I understand, he was able to get back on that ballot in Michigan. Same thing with Jill Stein, back on the ballot in Michigan and Wisconsin. So why are they bringing Dr. West on now again? Listen to this conversation.
Well, appreciate the question. I always enjoy to be in conversation with you. And your brilliance is undeniable, my dear sister. And it's always a blessing to
A
talk with you.
compliment coming
One
from the
is
likes
that
of you. Thank you so much.
No, I'm just, my campaign's about truth, justice, and love. Truth about everything, and justice for everybody, and love across the board. But one, we have to recognize that we have such a corrupt system. It's just driven by big money, the billions of dollars that both major parties are going to have access to. And then the arbitrary power to just do anything. And all you have to do is look at the plight of my precious Uhuru 3, who have been so thoroughly mistreated, unjustly treated by arbitrary power of the government, which means what? Which means then that someone like myself, hardworking volunteers at work, breaking their necks and then being so viciously attacked by especially the Democratic Party, and then we go to look for lawyers, it's almost impossible to find a lawyer. You can find a libertarian lawyer that has certain Republican associations, but concerned about each person voting. And that's very important. We just had Brother Joseph of the Socialist Equality Party. He had to speak strongly on our behalf, even the differences that he recognized that we have. We have a system that is so undemocratic that both parties have very little interest in democracy in the end, which is not to say they're identical, but in the end, they'll do anything to win. And some of us trying to hold out for some kind of integrity and honesty. And yes, we could be manipulated, but I've been quite explicit. I don't want any Trump gangster spies, operative infiltrators. And at the same time, the Democrats trying to crush us like cockroaches, but we rise. We're still on the move and on a variety of different ballots.
What? So I was very surprised that CNN allowed Dr. West to come on and say that the Democrats took him off the ballot, because they've had Jill Stein on, I believe, once earlier when she announced she was running. But, you know, they really don't like Jill because they still blame her for the reason why Hillary Clinton lost, even though Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. So I was surprised they allowed him to come on and criticize the Democratic Party the way that he did about what they did to him in reference to the ballot access. And there's more that he's going to say in this interview as well. But you're going to start to hear some type of desperation here from Laura a little bit. Like, well, what would it take? What would it take for you to just drop out and give some support to Kamala?
Why is it that you think Democrats, and especially as his head lawyers in particular, are not coming to your aid in order to support your efforts to get on the ballot? Do you think that it is somehow a suggestion that you indeed are a threat to the Democratic ticket?
Well, anytime the truth is a threat to any set of lies and crimes. When I talk about Democratic Party, Sister Harris being genocide denier, genocide enabler, not talking about poverty, not talking about mass incarceration, not a word about reparations, not talking about wealth inequality, but the opportunity society, then that just those words constitute a certain kind of threat, it seems to me. But of course, at the same time, we have to be very honest and recognize that the Democratic Party has had so many different forms of rot that are operative. And it poses itself as a major opposition to the fascism of Trump. And it's sad to see, you know, Brother Kennedy has a right to be wrong, but he's siding with fascists. It's immoral. But if the only respond to fascism when all of its lies and crimes is going to be more lies and crimes, then that's not a genuine anti-fascism. You're just postponing it. You're just putting it off. And if America doesn't have the capacity to provide a genuine response, then what are we talking about? We're headed toward fascism. We've got to be able to tell the truth about it.
I love this one here, Siesta in the Sun. I think that's the last time Dr. West will be on CNN. Yeah, he reveals quite a bit here.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dr. West. Do you take issue or are you concerned at all about the Republicans who may be supporting your efforts to remain on the ballot, given some believe it's because they are intending for you to detract from the Democratic ticket, which obviously every candidate must earn their right towards that 270. Right. But do you take issue with the intimation that you are being used in that fashion?
Wrong question, Laura. Wrong question, Laura. Laura, your question should be, do you have issue or take issue with the Democratic Party, which you were once a part of during the Bernie Sanders campaigns, actively removing you off the ballot? That should be what you're focused on there, Laura. But Laura can't focus on that because she's working for CNN. She really can't be throwing them under the bus like that if she wants to stay in that seat. That's how that works. But wrong question, Laura. Think about this for a second. In this crazy town, the Republicans are trying to help the third party candidates stay on the ballot. The Democratic Party is actively or has been actively removing Dr. West and Jill Stein off the ballot. Now, they've been beating these back. They've been like, Jill is used to this. You know, she didn't do this before, so she know what it takes, what's going to cost to get back on. So they did it in Wisconsin. She got right back on. They tried to do it in Michigan. She got right back on. Like, they know how to beat this, right? Plus, Jill's a part of the Green Party. Dr. West running as an independent, like he just told her, it's hard for him to find a lawyer that is a Democrat or a liberal lawyer that's not a Republican lawyer, because obviously the Democrats' attorneys are not going to want to help him stay on the ballot. Does everybody understand that? So Laura here is more focused on the fact that somebody's trying to help him stay on the ballot instead of being focused on the fact that the Democratic Party, which complains about the need for democracy, is actively being undemocratic.
No, I don't think it's a matter of being used. It's a matter of presenting the strongest case. And I come out of legacy, Martin King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rabbi Heschel, Edward Said, Dorothy Day. I'm trying to keep that legacy alive in the context of electoral politics and tell the truth about American imperial policies, not just in the Middle East, but around the world, about predatory capitalist processes and legacies of white supremacy still operating that you don't hear too much in the Democratic Party these days. Now you got a black sister running, but you don't get serious talk about black people's situation, plight, and predicament, how that relates to issues of poverty and issues of class and issues.
Uh-oh. Let's hear that part again. He said you have a black sister running, but...
No, I don't think it's a matter of being used. It's a matter of presenting the strongest case. And I come out of legacy, Martin King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rabbi Heschel, Edward Said, Dorothy Day. I'm trying to keep that legacy alive in the context of electoral politics and tell the truth about American imperial policies, not just in the Middle East, but around the world, about predatory capitalist processes and legacies of white supremacy still operating that you don't hear too much in the Democratic Party these days. Now you got a black sister running, but you don't get serious talk about black people's situation, plight, and predicament, how that relates to issues of poverty and issues of class and issues of socioeconomic.
So that right there is a jab towards Kamala Harris. That's why I'm surprised this was on CNN, because what he did was he called out the fact of this focus on her identity, that, oh, look, there's someone with a black face. And I say black face because she's not Black American. There's someone with a black face that is running. But at the same time, she has no agenda for Black Americans. She has no agenda for minority groups, period, except for that whole first generation home buyer thing, which we got into all of that the other time. We got into all that. I told you who that also includes. The woman who told you she wouldn't do anything specifically for Black people. Right? So we had this with Barack Obama. Yeah, there was someone with a black face that was running, but he didn't have a black agenda either. Barack Obama didn't push for any type of reparations. Barack Obama didn't push for any type of criminal justice reform the way that he could have and should have, considering that BLM and Ferguson riots happened under his administration. So you can't keep falling for the okie doke. And there's a lot of people sitting back and they're like, oh, but we could have the first, woman of color, first woman, Black woman, da, 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 da. Let me tell you something, because I've known about Kamala for quite some time. Kamala Harris will do something for women of color before she does something for Black women. What do I mean by that? Right? Because when you say women of color, that includes a lot of different people. She'll do something for that group as a whole before she would do something specifically for Black people. Everybody really needs to understand that. That's one thing I can tell you she's not lying about. I don't think she was lying when she said that she wasn't going to do anything specifically for you.
Position along with the white supremacy, meaning what? Meaning, in fact, that it is very difficult to keep this legacy alive, given the fact that there's not a lot of space in American society and culture for serious talk about painful truths, for serious talk about justice for poor and working people, and serious talk about love. Brothers, sisters, siblings, the humanity in each and every one of us, that's being pushed to the margins. That's the primary thing that's generating the fascist mean-spiritedness on the one hand and the militarism on the other. When I hear my dear sister Harris say, America is the greatest story ever told, and I think it's Shiloh Baptist Church to say, I thought it was Jesus. Oh, so now we got the cross under the flag. Now we got God under the nation state. You can be patriotic, but not ever think that the nation state is over something grander like truth and love and justice. No, not at all. The greatest privilege is being in America.
I hear your
no,
point.
The greatest privilege is being loved and giving love, to love and be loved. Let's not get things confused in this frenzy, in this talk about joviality as if it's joy. I'm talking about a deep joy that comes out of grief, that comes out of struggle. That's what the blues is fundamentally about.
Well, let me sing my blues for a second and ask you this pointedly, Dr. West, and just really.
When that comment where he said that Kamala said that the greatest story in history or whatever is America, it reminds me of that character from the movie Head of State with Chris Rock, the guy that he was running against, and he said, God bless America and no place else. That's what it reminds me of.
Quick, given what you think is lacking from the Harris campaign, should you not continue with your own candidacy? Would you, in any respect, be open to working with that campaign or endorsing the Harris campaign? Yes or no?
No, I would never sell my precious Palestinians down the river, and I'd never have poor people pushed to the side in order to jump on the bandwagon of the Democratic Party. And of course, unlike Kennedy, never even think about the gangster Trump. No, we are trying to be true to our calling, and we are proceeding to November 5th.
Dr. Cornel West, not a yes or no, but thorough nonetheless. Thank you. I hope the voters certainly understand your point.
It's really, no, I'm going to the end. I'm sorry about that.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I understand. Dr. West, thank you so much.
So he said, I would never sell my Palestinian brothers and sisters down the river, which obviously, again, that's a dig to Kamala Harris because she is. You heard her say it herself. You ain't got to hear from me. You heard her say it yourself tonight. She let you know, right? Now, why did they bring Cornel West on again on CNN? If they claim that it's going nowhere or whatever, why are they still bringing him on? Let me show you why. New polls came out. This is from Nate Silver. Take a look at this, and we'll get into what Nate actually said. This is just a snapshot, but I'll show you what he actually said. Forecast chance of winning, Nate Silver. This is today. Georgia it says Trump 63%, Harris 37%. Again, this is Nate Silver forecast. Arizona, he predicts Trump 60%, Harris 40%. Pennsylvania, Trump 52%, Harris 48%. Nevada, Trump 52%, Harris 48%. Wisconsin, Harris 53%, Trump 47%, and Michigan 58% for Kamala, 42% for Trump. Now, Brittany Ray, she said, Nate said he would have to change the odds if after the convention she didn't come out plus 14 like Obama. And she did not. So yeah, she did get a bump in the polls after the DNC, which is expected. Just like it was expected that Trump would get a bump in the polls after the RNC, right? Typical. However, Nate Silver firmly believes that in order for Kamala Harris to be a shoo-in to win the Electoral College, she would need to get a plus 14 like Obama did. She did not. This is what's happening now. This is from Nate Silver. Follow him if you can. Weird update today. Harris ticked up slightly in our national polling average, but lost ground in our forecast and is now less than 50% versus Trump. So this is important to hear. I want to highlight what's happening in Pennsylvania. He said she has another problem. It's been a while since we've seen a poll showing Harris leading in Pennsylvania. A high quality poll showing Harris ahead of Pennsylvania would make a big difference right now. And right now, this is what it shows you. Again, this most recent one from Emerson, this is August 25th through August 28th. 28th was yesterday. Emerson College, it now shows Kamala even with Donald Trump, 49-49 even, 1.37 influence. She's not getting more of a bump in Pennsylvania. For whatever reason, Trump got a bump. Kamala got a bump as we expected with the DNC because of the convention, but Donald Trump also got a bump, right? So this could be the start of the effects of RFK Jr. endorsing Donald Trump. I told you it would probably be like a week or two before we see that full effect. Also, the Tulsi Gabbard effect with her jumping in to that as well. I think I have to sign in here, don't I? I do have to sign in here. Damn you, Nate. Like, hello. I'm already subscribed. Like, didn't we have this conversation already? I always got to do this. Like, why you may do this? Okay, here we go. Couple things I just want to point out from his recent Substack here. Pennsylvania may be a problem for Kamala Harris. And I want to talk about the Electoral College because, once again, I'm going to teach people how to do math on this damn show. Because I'm seeing a lot of people say some things to me that's very clear that we need to focus more on civics and math on this show. Peep this. Harris is ahead 3.8 points in our national poll tracker, up from 2.3 points the day before the Democratic convention began, which does suggest some sort of convention bounce. However, she's fallen to a 47.3% chance of winning the Electoral College versus 52.4% for Donald Trump. Now, remember, Nate Silver said if she didn't get the plus 14 coming out of that convention like Obama, he was going to have to make adjustments with his predictions. So something that I had mentioned earlier on that I think could happen with Kamala Harris is that, again, like Hillary, she could win the popular vote, but lose the Electoral College. And at the end of the day, in order to win, you have to win the Electoral College. So this is why I continue to focus a lot on what do the polls say in the swing states? Because just because it says that she's winning a national poll, that doesn't mean she's going to win the Electoral College. Okay? So we got to go back to doing math and looking at how this actually works. And there was another thing that he put here. So that's the chart where I showed you about the Pennsylvania data right now coming out of that Emerson College poll. And then I also want to show you this as well. It says right here, but for now, we show a 17% chance that
Revolutionary salute to our Queen Eve to Eve for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is red life. I absolutely appreciate that donation, Queen. Salute.
Kamala Harris wins the popular vote, but not the Electoral College, a big concern for her campaign all along. If she won the popular vote nationally between 1 and 2 points, for instance, the model estimates that she'd still be a 70/30 underdog in the Electoral College. Now, that still doesn't mean that she can't win, but it's not easy. It's not going to be easy as the media is making you think. When you see these polls, sometimes I want you to remember, sometimes people, less than 500 people are even polled in these polls. So just keep that in mind. Polls are supposed to inspire you. If you see that Kamala's doing good in some polls, that may encourage you. If you weren't thinking about voting, that may make you think, okay, well, maybe I do want to come out. Or it could make you go in the other direction. Depends on how you feel. If you see that she's doing poorly in the polls, that may make some people less willing to come out because they're like, oh, what's the point? But it might encourage others to come out. The problem that Kamala runs into is the fact that she has not been on the campaign trail long and she doesn't have that much time. Joe Biden just suspended his campaign. It's almost around the 40-day mark when Kamala announced. So November is just around the corner. So she really does not have as much time as like a Barack Obama did when he was running for president. But I want to show you a different poll. because this right here, holding Dems accountable. Morality aside, why is Kamala flagrantly ignoring the will of 8 in 10 of her own voters? Look at this poll here. CBS News poll. Nearly 8 in 10 Democrats say the U.S. should not send weapons to Israel. 77% versus 23%. And you heard what Kamala said in the interview with Dana Bash. She's not going to stop sending weapons to Israel. That's another concern. There's also this. Look what's back on campus. The protests are back on campus.
Israel bombs, you have been paid! Israel bombs, you have been paid! How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today? Israel bombs, you have been paid! Israel bombs, you have been paid! How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today? Israel bombs, you have been paid! Israel bombs, you have been paid! How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today?
So the campus protests, as predicted, are back. That was the University of Michigan. Some campuses are already starting to make more rules so that the students can't protest in the way that they could before, etc. But this is a problem for Kamala Harris, and it's not just Gaza, but the interview that she had with Dana Bash, the response that she gave about the economy. We're just going to continue the same thing that we did under Biden. I don't think that's going to win a lot of people over. I don't think that's what people want to hear right now, especially those that are struggling financially. But what would I know? I'm just an everyday person that talks to people out on the street, unlike Kamala. So the point that I'm trying to make with that interview with Cornel West and these polls that I just showed you in the forecast, Kamala Harris' campaign does not have it in the bag, you guys. And I know corporate media is making it sound like they do, but they actually don't. They're nervous. They're concerned. That's why they're bringing Cornel West on CNN. That's why they're still trying to get people off the ballot that are not obviously, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. They don't have this in the bag. Now, that being said, I want to show you a different poll, which is more than 500 people. More than 500 people. And that's the poll that I did Tuesday night. So I posted it on Twitter.
Salute, Queen.
Hey, come see us on tour. Be in Duluth, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, Los Angeles, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. Okay, so maybe you don't know about this story, but it's super important, which is why I'm bringing it to you. The FBI conducted coordinated raids against Black Liberation Organization, and this was another outgrowth of Russiagate garbage, right? On July 29th at 5 a.m., the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation conducted a violent raid on the home of Amali Yeshitela, the chairman of the U.S.-based African People's Socialist Party in St. Louis, Missouri. In a video posted the next day, Yeshitela claims the FBI deployed flashbang grenades, carried automatic weapons, damaged the property of his neighbors, including smashing windows, and handcuffed himself and his wife. Yeshitela also claims that the FBI refused to show him a search warrant and that they took his cell phones and other devices from his home. It was only later that Yeshitela learned that the raid on his home was only a part of several raids across the country against locations affiliated with the APSP. That same day, the FBI raided the Uhuru Solidarity Center, also in St. Louis, and the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida, both locations of Uhuru movement led by the African People's Socialist Party. So this was the government trying to squash free speech and squash dissent. That's all this is. According to Yeshitela, the FBI also raided the APSP's radio station, Black Power 96.3 FM, and reportedly detained a prominent APSP leader. So here's a little bit of that. Here's a little bit of what happened.
You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
The FBI broke down doors, threw flashbang grenades, handcuffed you.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
Wow. They covered the security cameras with tape. Isn't that sounds very fascistic. The FBI is a criminal organization. Following footage is from the attack on the Party Solidarity Reparations Center on the south side of St. Louis.
Yeah, breaks, what do you need? They want, I don't know. What's whole bed with money? Don't take it.
APSC and USM leaders were handcuffed, held at gunpoint while their homes were raided.
Build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of Black people around the world.
So this has been reported on the local corporate news, but it's been reported poorly. And so let's bring on Chairman Omali Yeshitela. He is a renowned political activist and author, as well as the founder and current chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, which leads the Uhuru movement. The Uhuru movement is a pan-Africanist organization that aims to unite and liberate Africa and African people worldwide. And on September 3rd, he will be in federal court to face charges that he is a secret pawn in a Russian government conspiracy to sow discord and interfere in elections. If convicted, he faces up to 15 years in prison. Please welcome to the show, Chairman Omali.
Thank you very much. I want to express appreciation to being able to be here and break out of this sort of information quarantine that has been imposed on us. You mentioned a couple of local news entities covered it, but for the most part, it was dead air. We didn't get much coverage at all. So, and especially is significant because the state has characterized this as some kind of working with the Russians, working for the Russians, a threat to national security and all those things. And then they're definitely silent about everything. So I think that's remarkable.
Well, Russiagate turned out to be a complete hoax that was concocted by the the FBI, the CIA, and the Clinton campaign, and then it was pushed by this corporate media. Their own investigation, the Mueller report, revealed that there was zero evidence that any of that was true, zero. And so I was vindicated in debunking it from the start. But I always warned that they would use Russiagate to gin up support for a war. And of course, they're using it for the Ukraine war. And now they're using that to come and suppress you. What is it about you and your organization that you think the FBI and the establishment is afraid of?
I think part of what's happened is that the kind of politic that I represent in this country and much of the world has been suppressed during the 1960s with assassination, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Black Panther Party forces. That happened throughout this country, tremendous repression. And what had been elevated is a kind of politic that we characterize as a certain kind of welfare slavery with liberals and a lot of African people who benefit tremendously by being part of these poverty programs and other kinds of systems, programs that keep a lot of them alive. And we've broken out of that. And we're saying that African people, like every dignified people on the planet Earth, we want to be free. We want to be able self-determining people, and which is why they killed Malcolm, because he was saying that, and the Panthers and other people. When at the moment that we say we want to be self-determining, it becomes a real serious problem. And of course, the fact that we say we want to be self-determining, they see as an attack on the narrative that they've created about the United States being this place that everybody is free and everybody wants to be free and everybody loves it, et cetera, et cetera. And they can get away with that as long as they can keep everybody quiet. And so America, under the Biden administration in particular, puts itself forward as this great democracy that's protecting the world from the autocrats of the world, et cetera. And how can it be this great democracy if it's suppressing free speech? How can it explain the daily killings of Black people by police and sometimes even by civilians? How can they explain the incredible poverty that's imposed on a community that's played such a big role in developing the economy of this country? And it can't. And so the only way they can get away with it is that those of us who are most significantly impacted by this are not able to talk. And so they shut us up and they say, if we say anything, it's not Black people who are saying this, it's Russians who are saying this. If we make a criticism of our treatment by the United States government, it's not Black people who are doing this, it's Russians who are doing this. And that this is a means of sowing discord. The fact of the matter is discord is obviously already in this country. And it's not just a matter of what's happening with Black people. It's also the whole social fabric of this country at this moment is under severe stress, as you know.
So I don't understand so they're charging you with sowing discord? Is that what they're charging? What are they charging you with?
They charging me with being a Russian agent. I'm a Russian agent, and the evidence of being a Russian agent, I'm a Russian agent who also did not register as a foreign agent, as a representative of a foreign country. So I'm a Russian agent, and I'm a Russian agent because I went to Moscow twice in 2015, because I participated in organizing campaigns in 2017 and 2019 in St. Petersburg, Florida, a local campaign, city with less than 1/3 people, only something like 18% of which is Black. So we ran on a reparations campaign. We ran on a campaign to end gentrification that's happening to our community. So the Russians pay for that, they said. I'm a Russian agent because I had on our Burning Spear newspaper, our newspaper social media, we had a representative from the anti-globalization movement, a non-governmental organization in Russia, to talk about the war that had broken out with Ukraine. And so that proved also that we were a Russian agent. Before the war broke out, however, something like 2 days, I had come out in opposition to United States politics around Russia, going back to the whole history of how this thing had begun. And so they said that this made me like a Russian agent too. So Russia is paying me to do these things.
This is really remarkable because, first of all, I think a lot of people might have missed what you said there in your first response, was that you reject the welfare state in the United States and you want to be self-sufficient. Like, so and the video, it showed that you had set up a local kitchen and you want to very much reminded me of the Black Panthers, which they couldn't have. That's why they went and stopped and ended their organization. But could you explain a little bit more what you don't like the welfare system in the United States and you don't participate in it?
Listen, I think that African people deserve everything that we get from the state. So that's not, the point is that they would have us living off welfare and oppose any self-determination. We have something like 52 independent economic development programs. Our party does. We have built housing. We have created basketball courts for poor African children in communities where children are playing in the streets trying to play basketball. We have initiated a farmers market in what they call food deserts. We've done that. We've created other kinds of markets in Philadelphia. We've got one in St. Louis. We do that kind of work. And so the thing is to make African people self-sufficient, self-reliant, and self-determining. We believe that we have a right to be a self-governing people, and we believe that we can use constitutional methods to pursue this right. That's why we ran somebody for office. That's why we do that often, to get into the political arena so that the people can hear our voices and hear what it is that we can say and make some kind of determination of whether they support us or not. But if you have a situation where the government puts forth its own favorite Black organizations who toe the line on every question, who work with the narrative that all we want to do is be good chocolate-colored white people, if you've got this kind of thing in the government holding up that narrative, and then doing so many other horrible things with blackface, that we never would have, as a community, we've always been opposed to these unjust wars. But now the war has the face of not only Obama and a Harris, but also the face of a Lloyd Austin and all these other people who are committing these offenses against the peoples of the world and fighting for democracy and democratic rights, they say. So we believe that we can, without the interference of the government, we believe that we can take care of ourselves.
And so that sounds like a threat to the establishment, right? That you being self-sufficient and taking care of your own self and your own community, you having a voice and being Black people speaking out against the establishment, not going along with the Black people who prop up the establishment, like as you talked about Barack Obama, that is what is the real threat, right?
Yes, that is the real threat. Because if in fact we could build these institutions, and we have built them, and by the way, one institution we've built, we've got a grant from the United States government because nobody else could do it, in terms of some of the projects we put on the ground among working class Black people, ordinary Black people, working class people who live in what they call ghettos and stuff like that. Not the people who you saw at the Democratic Party convention, rich people, multimillionaires and stuff like that, complaining about poverty, etc., but the people ourselves. That's the thing. They don't want to see the impoverished working class of this country, Black people, working independent of that kind of control. So yeah, that's a problem, because if we could do it, the question is, why doesn't the government do it? If it really believes in what it says it is around the world.
I am really surprised. I mean, I was surprised to see when they raided you. I'm even more surprised to see that they are taking you to court. So this must really be a threat to the establishment, and this should matter to everybody, because if they can do this to you, they can do this to anybody. And so anybody who stands up and does mutual aid in their community, anybody who says we can be self-sufficient, anybody who speaks out and threatens the narrative of the establishment, they can come down and bring the hammer down and then just make up stuff saying you're Russian. I mean, that's what they did to Donald Trump, and anybody who they don't like. They did it to Tulsi Gabbard, who still serves in the military. They said she was a Russian agent. So that's the game of the establishment, is that anybody who's a threat to them, they immediately call them a Russian. And I really am surprised that they're saying, do they have any I mean, do your lawyers have any fear that you'll be convicted? Are you afraid that you'll be convicted?
Well, I think it's a good it's a possibility I'll be convicted. The fact is, look, I'm 83 years old. I'll be 83 in October. And for a 15-year prison sentence is a life sentence for me. That's the assumption. And I think that that they intend to put me in prison for life. There's no doubt in my mind about that. They wouldn't have gone through all of this if they did not intend to do it. But our lawyers, we've got an extraordinary array of lawyers. I mean, a battery of lawyers who've taken this on. And if it is something that is based on law and the Constitution, we'll win. But the fact is, I think the system makes the, I think, incorrect assumption that if you say Russia, 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 black, 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 and black and Russia, that they have created enough prejudices among the people that people will overlook the fact that the government has no evidence that they can use. The government has some facts. I did go to Moscow, but I also went to Spain. I also went to Ireland. I also went to various other places around the world. And I went for the same reason I went to Moscow, that is to break out of this encirclement and to win support and friends for the struggle of Black people for self-determination. So that's a fact that I went to Moscow. And they used this fact and it's a fact that we had a relationship with the anti-globalization movement of Russia, which is a non-governmental organization. That the government is now saying was funded by the Russian government. So it's a fact that we had a relationship with the anti-globalization movement. And we attended conferences that were supportive, the conferences that brought together people who were for self-determination. So that's a fact. It's a fact that we participated in the election that I just mentioned. We in 2017 and 2019. We ran for office in St. Petersburg, Florida, and they say that the Russians paid for this, which is incredible and easily disproved. So, those are the kinds of things that they are using, and they took from us. I don't understand what this stuff is about, terabytes and all of that, but I understand they took something like the equivalent of 2.5 million books in terms of the stuff they took off our computers, cell phones, videos, and the equivalent of 2.5 million books. And so they know more about me than I know about myself. I haven't been studying myself in every word that I've said, throughout this process. But it's a bogus charge. We are innocent of what they said. We are absolutely innocent. We have never been employed by Russians or anybody else. That goes against the grain of everything we believe in, because nobody else can free us to go to Russia and then work for Russia for freedom when we are involved historically in a struggle for self-determination doesn't make any sense at all. But they're not relying on something making sense. They're relying on what they think will be the fact that I'm in court, the fact that they say Russia, the fact that they say Black people, that would suffice to have people overlook the fact that they have no evidence to prove this, one, and two, that this is an assault on the First Amendment. In fact, the prosecutor at one juncture had filed a motion to the court to prevent us from even using First Amendment free speech as a part of our defense. The court obviously thought that was just too outrageous, and they denied that motion. But this is what we're up against.
So have there been any prominent Black leaders in the United States that have reached out to you, Reverend L. Sharpton or Jesse Jackson or
no.
Barack Obama or Michelle Obama, Nina Turner, and any of those Black leaders reach out to you?
No. But we've got people, like Charles Barron, who has been a state assemblyman and city councilor of New York for a long time, him and his wife. We've got Jesse Todd, who was on the city government in St. Louis, Missouri, have come out. And then there's a whole host. I mean, I think maybe as many as 240 some odd organizations spanning the ideological and political spectrum in this country. I mean, you may know that I did an interview with Tucker Carlson on one side of the question, and then I've done interviews with folk who are called progressive and leftists and what have you. So there are a lot of people who see this correctly as a real threat to free speech, because what they've done is create a situation where if you have views that's aligned with the views of another country, they can claim that you are working for that country because your views coincide. For example, they say, the Russians say that it was a U.S. attack through NATO through Ukraine, that they're making war against Russia. We say that, but we said it even before the war started. But they say it because the Russians say that, it's clear evidence that we are working for Russia. So, and they can do that to anybody. So you cannot have independent thought. And that's the scary thing. I mean, this whole thing about freedom of speech, it's not just something for me to say something, but it's the right of people to hear what's being said. And people don't have to agree, but at least they have access to some kind of educated opinion, as opposed to the bias that the system has created for people in terms of how they should understand what we believe and, so forth.
So no, Cory Bush hasn't reached out, Jamal Bowman, none of those people. Okay. I just want to, none of those. That's amazing.
Oh, you right, the Cory Bush, she's in St. Louis, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
She's in St. Louis. Yeah, she is in St. Louis.
I helped her out in her first campaign for office, and then that was the last I heard from her.
Yeah, we've had a problem. We've had a problem getting in touch with her also. Yeah.
Well, this sounds like the worst thing that happened to Africans in Florida since Will Smith released Miami. Am I right? Come on. Anyway, how can people support you? Are you asking for people to support you?
Surely. We think it's really important. First of all, go to handsoffuhuru, UHURU.org. And we think it's really important when you go there to look at the legal documents. Look at the indictment that they made against us. Look at the motion that was filed by our lawyer to dismiss the charges. Look at the thing that was done by the National Lawyers Guild as Friends of the Court motion. Look at all of this stuff, the back and forth. These are dispassionate statements about what occurred. What was supposed to have occurred. And so go to handsoffuhuru.org. 1, 2. On tomorrow, there's going to be a massive mobilization in St. Petersburg, Florida, right across the bridge from Tampa, where the trial is going to happen. And we're calling on people to come who can come. But for the duration of the trial, we're having people come in, participate in organizing on the street, on the ground. Get in touch with your comrades and friends. Put this story out so it's not hidden under the bush. Take the charges, take the indictment, take the response to the indictment. Let people have an informed understanding of what this thing is all about. I think that's part of what you can do. And go to handsoffuhuru.org and you can see other things. Obviously, we need resources. We've had to spend something like $300,000 up to now just dealing with the legal fees. It cost us $40,000 just in damages to our property and materials that they stole from us, like computers and cell phones and things like that. So money is an issue, and their objective in part is to break us, is to take all of our resources. They have banks which have sanctioned us. That banks that we've been dealing with for more than 20 years, never missed a payment, and always most time paid before times. They've called in mortgage loans and given us something like 2 weeks to pay $80,000. So go to handsoffuhuru.org and you can find out more information. Thank you.
And in St. Petersburg on the 30th.
Kids, where you were when the United States dollar changed forever. We just saw the last gasp of the US dollar. In 20 years, you'll be able to look back at this Labor Day weekend and see the exact moment everything changed. It's historic, and not in a good way, that the U.S. economy is grinding to a halt.
I think the U.S. economy is slowing faster and in a broader sense than most people anticipated, including the Fed. And I think that the market is catching up to that possibility, which has become a probability.
Mohammed El-Arian is exactly right. And it's all being controlled by a globalist cabal of elites that wants Kamala Harris elected right now. So right now, as we speak, we are watching the single biggest shift for the U.S. dollar hegemony in the past 80 years. Over the next few weeks, the plan will be put fully into action. The massive dumping of U.S. dollars, flooding the market, bank collapses, job losses, which we're seeing by the millions, by the way, and skyrocketing inflation that no amount of lying will hide. I'm looking at you, Kamala Harris.
No.
So let's get into it. There are a few big pieces of news that I want to get to right now that everyone better pay attention to, and most people have been ignoring. Most of you, of course, were hard at work last week trying to provide for your families, going about your day. You certainly weren't paying attention to Fed Chief Jerome Powell up there in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Well, he dropped an economic bombshell on America. Powell admitted that the jobs market is in real trouble. Consumer spending is down, and he openly admitted that the Fed is now pivoting. Quote, the time for pivoting our policies is upon us.
The cooling in labor market conditions is unmistakable.
So with those words, he sent gold skyrocketing to all-time highs, the U.S. dollar plunging to its lowest point of 2024 with just one sentence. All it took was one sentence. He hasn't even cut rates yet. This was just one sentence. Unbelievable. As trends forecaster Jared Salenti just told me, we are already in a recession, and the coming crash is going to be worse than anyone wants to admit.
They want to keep the people in power in power. Simple as that. They're running the show right in front of your eyes. They're going to lower interest rates and do everything they can to boost up the economy. The lower interest rates fall, the deeper the dollar declines. The dollar's only high because of the high interest rates. So again, the deeper the dollar falls, the higher gold prices go. Gold prices could go to $3,000 an ounce this year.
I mean, we can haggle over whether it's a recession or a depression, but it's already here and it's about to get much worse. New data this week from businesses all over the United States telling the Fed that Americans can't afford shit thanks to Biden and Harris's economic policies. Quote, our data supports the thesis that consumer spending is paring back materially. We will start seeing significant negative impacts to our business if spending continues to decline at the current rate through the end of the year. In other words, Americans are tapped out. No savings left, huge amounts of credit card debt, no expendable income to go to the movies, to go to the mall. Instead of getting new clothes for back to the school time, sorry kids, you'll need to wear last year's clothing. Don't believe me? Well, then believe the sales at Dollar General. The freaking dollar stores are hurting. New data out today from Dollar General shows shares crashing 26%. 26%. Why? Now, the store admits that its core customer, its bread and butter, feel financially constrained. And the store is desperate. This weekend, they rolled out a 91% clearance sale to try and lure in customers into the stores. 91%. Even with that 91% off, Americans still aren't shopping.
Revolutionary salute to our brother de jour Brewer for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a real life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute to you.
Like they used to. So now the Fed is going to slash rates likely 4 times in the next few weeks and the next few months. 4 rate cuts. But it's too little too late, as Jeremy Siegel says. The honeymoon is over for the Fed.
The honeymoon is over. Let's put it that way. Jay Powell and Fed enjoyed this idea that, we can bring inflation down, no real consequences. We can wait and wait and wait. Well, I think he waited too long.
And, there isn't some magic bullet that's going to put more money into people's wallets, especially if they've lost their jobs. I mean, sure, reduce inflation would help. Prices about everything have gone up over 20%, even 30%. But that's not going to happen because now that Powell is slashing interest rates, the U.S. dollar will be devalued even further. Just so you understand, in the U.S., there is $6.2 trillion sitting in money market accounts. That's an all-time record. Normally, it's about $1 trillion because up until now, the U.S. dollar has been an attractive investment against other currencies, against the euro and other currencies around the world, but not anymore. As soon as Powell slashes interest rates, that money will leave those money market accounts. In other words, that's literally selling U.S. dollars. And all of this cash is going to hit the American market, making inflation far worse. But don't worry, Kamala Harris has a plan to help. Even though she's currently responsible for this disaster, she's pretending like she's not currently in power. Her plan is to print trillions more in US dollars, put in place price controls, give people free housing, and tax unrealized capital gains. When her top economic advisor appeared on CNBC this week to try to explain how taxing money that you don't have would work, well, it didn't end well for him.
Well, unrealized gains, taxing unrealized gains just doesn't seem fair in any sense of the word. In the very best sense, if you are taxing unrealized gains, all you're doing is pulling forward the taxes that would be paid later when someone actually sells the stock.
I think that this reaction to unrealized gains is a little funny, given that I bet that the majority of people watching right now are already paying a tax on unrealized gains. It's called a property tax. When the value of your home goes up,
it's a use tax.
When the value of your home goes up, you pay higher taxes, even if you don't sell your home.
Your value of your home never moves the way the stock moves, the way something else moves.
That's always the go-to answer.
These are the clowns trying to run America into the ground, folks. They are fools. But it doesn't stop there. New data out this week shows just how many pieces of merchandise are not being shipped out of America. Our trade deficit. As economist Peter Schiff points out, quote, the non-COVID reopening record high July merchandise trade deficit reveals the true state of the United States economy. It's a complete disaster, he says. If currency traders understood economics, the dollar would be crashing. It eventually will, taking the U.S. standard of living down with it. He's absolutely right. In other words, imagine you have a lemonade stand. You also like to buy snacks from your friend's stand that's nearby. If you buy $10 worth of snacks from them, but they only buy $6 worth of lemonade from you, you end up spending $4 more than you earned. That's a $4 trade deficit. It's exactly the case for the United States. It means the country is spending more money on products made in other countries like cars, clothes, electronics than it is making by selling American-made products to other countries. The merchandise trade deficit is just a fancy way of saying that the United States is buying up way more stuff from other countries than it's selling to them. And we're just days away from the first Fed rate cut. All the warning signs are here, folks, of a major US dollar meltdown. And the mainstream media, of course, is going to try and hide it in order to get Kamala Harris elected.
No.
They'll tell you, as they've already been telling you, it's not that bad. You're not really smart.
Revolutionary salute to our queen. Eve to Eve say she matching brother du jour, bro. I absolutely appreciate you matching that brother and donating to the war chest, queen. Revolution is a way of life. I absolutely appreciate that love, queen. Salute.
Suffering. You're not spending more money on things. Your life is fine. They're literally lying to you. It's the perfect time right now for them to try to sell you a digital dollar that will solve all of your problems. It is coming, folks. Pay attention. So that's the news update part of today's video. Now I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which is tied directly to what we were just
around 40 to 47 countries from various. Over the past month, BRICS has seen substantial developments that underscore its growing influence on the global stage, from financial banking system to group expansion. As of August 2024, around 40 to 47 countries from various regions, including Africa, Asia, and South America, have expressed their desire to join BRICS. This interest is fueled largely by the bloc's potential to challenge the current global economic order, which is heavily dominated by Western institutions like the IMF and World Bank. Many of these nations are seeking to diversify away from reliance on the US dollar, as they perceive this dependency to pose significant risks to their economies, especially considering potential US economic downturns. In parallel to its membership expansion, BRICS is advancing initiatives to create alternative financial systems. For example, the BRICS New Development Bank has approved 98 infrastructure projects totaling $33 billion since its inception, positioning itself as a credible alternative to Western-dominated financial institutions. Additionally, the group is working towards an intra-bank payment system, aimed at reducing reliance on the dollar in cross-border transactions, which is seen as a key step toward de-dollarization. In this video, we take you through the latest development of BRICS as of August 2024. Launch of BRICS intrabank system. Let's examine a major recent development in BRICS that advances financial independence for its members. Russia and Iran have significantly advanced their economic collaboration by linking their national payment systems. This integration connects Iran's CPAM and Russia's SPFS, allowing financial transactions to be processed using their respective currencies, the ruble and rial, bypassing the US dollar and the SWIFT network. This initiative is crucial as it helps both nations circumvent Western sanctions and builds greater economic independence. The linked payment systems enable cross-border transactions, with over 60% of trade between the two countries now conducted in national currencies. This effort has boosted bilateral trade, which surged by 15% in the past year, reaching $4.6 billion. Both nations aim to double this trade volume to $8 billion annually. The integration also allows the mutual acceptance of bank cards, facilitating easier trade and financial exchanges between businesses and individuals. Russia's VTB Bank has launched services enabling money transfers between the two countries, further strengthening their economic ties. These measures are part of a broader strategy within BRICS to foster stronger economic alliances and reduce reliance on Western financial systems. BRICS membership and expansion. This month, several nations have garnered attention as they engage in discussions or take steps toward joining the BRICS bloc. Azerbaijan has officially submitted its application to join the BRICS economic bloc, making this move shortly after a visit from Russian President Vladimir Putin. On August 20, 2024, the Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry confirmed the application, which followed growing interest from Azerbaijan in expanding its global partnerships. Azerbaijan's intent to join BRICS was also highlighted during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in July 2024, where the country signed a joint declaration on strategic partnership with China, further solidifying its aspirations. China has expressed strong backing for Malaysia's potential membership in BRICS, emphasizing that the expansion of the bloc could promote a more equitable global system. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian highlighted the significance of welcoming new countries into BRICS, emphasizing its role in fostering fairness on the international stage. China supports the inclusion of additional partners in BRICS cooperation to help build a more just and balanced international order, Lin Jian stated, responding to Malaysia's bid to join the group. Lin further explained that expanding BRICS aligns with global trends and serves the interests of all members. He noted that the expansion contributes to global multipolarity and the democratization of international relations, pointing out the growing interest from developing nations to become part of the bloc. Let's take a quick pause. Could you do us a favor? If you enjoy our content, please hit the like button. To help even more, leave your thoughts and feedback in the comments. Your engagement helps us grow. Thank you. Malaysia's Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, recently confirmed that his country has officially applied to join BRICS, submitting its request to Russia, the bloc's current chair. Malaysian Foreign Minister Mohammed Hassan, addressing the nation's Senate, explained that Malaysia's interest in BRICS stems from the economic strength of its member states. BRICS is an informal group that doesn't require signing treaties. We see this bloc as a beneficial platform, given that its members represent a population of over 2 billion people and have a GDP larger than ASEAN countries combined, Hassan said, according to Burnham, a news agency. He added that Malaysia is eager to join as long as the doors to new membership remain open. Hassan also mentioned that ASEAN members will consider the implications of individual countries joining BRICS if necessary. In addition to Malaysia, Thailand has officially expressed its intent to join BRICS, with the Thai cabinet approving the application to strengthen its economy and enhance its global standing. This aligns with Thailand's aim to diversify its foreign relations and reduce dependence on traditional Western allies. The bloc offers a South-South cooperative framework that Thailand has long aspired to join, stated Foreign Minister Maris Sangiampongsa. Similarly, Vietnam has surfaced as a potential Southeast Asian candidate for BRICS membership, having held discussions with Russian and Chinese officials about its intentions, although no official confirmation has been made. Turkey is another country expressing a strong desire to join BRICS, driven by its strategic objectives to diversify its international partnerships and enhance economic collaboration. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan confirmed this ambition during his visit to China in June 2024, marking the highest-level interaction with a BRICS nation since 2012. Turkey's interest is seen as part of a broader effort to explore new economic platforms amidst stalled EU accession negotiations and tensions with NATO over various diplomatic and military concerns. Russia has welcomed Turkey's interest, indicating that the matter would be discussed at the upcoming BRICS summit. Let's now delve into the current state of the BRICS, from power to economy. The recent addition of major fossil fuel producers to the BRICS bloc is poised to influence global oil and gas markets by encouraging the adoption of alternative currencies, a trend referred to as de-dollarization. This shift could potentially undermine the US dollar's long-standing dominance in the energy sector. Nevertheless, Bloomberg economics analysts suggest that the main motivation behind BRICS's expansion is more political than economic. The broader goal of the expanded group is to establish itself as a strong counterweight to the G7 nations, which include Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US. The push for a more multipolar world is not exclusive to BRICS. Other international organizations, such as the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Mercosur, and the African Union, are also striving for a global order that is less dominated by the United States in the post-Cold War era. These alliances are collectively working to create a geopolitical environment that represents a broader range of economic and political interests worldwide. Trade power of BRICS. In 2023, the trade volume within BRICS countries saw notable growth, reaching $422 billion. This surge was largely driven by strong economic relationships among member nations, with the China-Russia partnership standing out as a key contributor. Trade between China and Russia reached $190 billion in 2022, bolstered by a 20% increase in the first half of 2023. Similarly, trade between China and Brazil, which totaled $165.6 billion in 2022, was supported by Brazil's exports of soybeans and iron ore, alongside China's provision of technology and consumer products. The BRICS expansion in 2024, which brought in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, Iran, and Ethiopia, has significantly bolstered the group's global economic presence. With these new members, BRICS now comprises 29.3% of global GDP, amounting to $30.8 trillion, and represents 46% of the world's population. The addition of major oil-producing countries such as Saudi Arabia and the UAE has had a substantial impact, increasing BRICS's share of global oil production from 20.4% to 43.1%, solidifying the bloc's role as a major player in global energy markets. Moreover, the expanded BRICS group has gained considerable leverage over vital mineral supply chains. With significant reserves of rare earth elements and other critical minerals, the bloc now controls roughly 72% of global rare earth production. This consolidation of resources could alter global trade patterns and investment strategies, particularly as countries like China and Russia have previously implemented export restrictions on key materials to safeguard and promote their strategic objectives. That's all for this video.
Over the weekend, I went ahead and started Patreon in addition to my locals community. I plan on uploading unique content to both of those platforms, and you're more than welcome to join as an alternative to YouTube. in response to a recent post that I made on YouTube in the community section. Many of you mentioned Patreon. So after giving it some thought over the weekend, I went ahead and started Patreon in addition to my locals community. I plan on uploading unique content to both of those platforms, and you're more than welcome to join as an alternative to YouTube. I think it is extremely important, especially nowadays with everything that is going on with Telegram and other social media platforms. I will share the links in the first comment below, as well as in the description right below this video. Thank you to every single one of you who decides to join and to support my work. I certainly appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you on those two platforms. As the forthcoming BRICS summit in October is getting closer, the anticipation of a new BRICS currency and its new blockchain-based payment system is one of the main topics. The so-called Global South, many of us prefer the term the global majority. That is what I like to use. So the global majority is looking forward to the news because of the two main benefits that it will provide. One, it will allow member countries to restrict their dependency on the United States dollar. And two, it will allow them to support their local currencies when settling cross-border trade. In turn, it will work to stabilize regional economies. It will improve the standards of living over time. Of course, nothing will be happening overnight, but it does offer very, very substantial long-term benefits. So it is not surprising that hopes are high. But by the way, just days ago, the United States Treasury Department announced that once again, the United States will further sanction those countries that allow Russian banks to open branches on their territories. You cannot make this up. Effectively, there is absolutely no respect for the sovereignty of those countries that seek to do business as they wish, that seek to even remain on the sidelines of the proxy war. Absolutely no respect for their sovereignty. Earlier, Russia's central bank governor, Elvira Nabiullina, indicated that 159 foreign participants from 20 countries have already joined the Russian system for transmitting financial messages. The settlement system is an alternative to SWIFT. It does exist. It is operating already. Due to such high level of interest, these countries have been discussing how they can better incorporate, how they can integrate their national systems with the one that is operating inside Russia. This particular system, by the way, is not new. It was created by the Central Bank of Russia almost a decade ago in anticipation of being disconnected from SWIFT. The goal, of course, is to achieve a more balanced fiscal independence and to distance from the dollar-denominated financial system. It has been clearly a priority for a very long time, even before the introduction of quite literally thousands of sanctions. The head of the BRICS Presidency Council, Victoria Panova, recently shared that the development of the payment mechanism is the priority of the upcoming BRICS 2024 summit. Panova said that there are active efforts underway to create a financial payment mechanism that would make cooperation between BRICS countries easier, maintaining their sovereign trade and economic exchanges, adding that this issue tops the agenda because every member of the group sees it as important. BRICS Pay, a blockchain-based system, will include real-time currency conversion, or in other words, a stable exchange mechanism to manage currency exchanges. Currently, the group countries have already launched basic blockchain solutions such as financial messaging, settlements, and clearing, which are, of course, steps towards the BRICS Pay and the broader financial framework. The BRICS payment system appears to have reached its final development stage. As you know, Russia is the chair of the BRICS alliance this year, and so a Russian senator and the Federation Council speaker, Valentina Matviyenko, said the BRICS digital payment platform is steadily moving forward. the creation of the independent financial payment platform BRICS Bridge, a standalone mutual payment system on a firm joint platform, is now being discussed within BRICS, she said. I have spoken both with the central bank and the finance ministry. Things are moving along nicely, she said. It is being discussed with colleagues from central banks, finance ministries of all BRICS countries, including new members. What's officially known at this time is that transactions will be settled via the BRICS Bridge international platform. As of now, there are no plans to use just one currency only. The bloc prefers to use a basket of national currencies, and I expect that that is what they will use moving forward. These transactions will be ultimately cleared by the New Development Bank, since it is the official financial arm of the BRICS Association, of the BRICS Alliance. What's important to know about the New Development Bank is that a state does not need to be a full BRICS member to take advantage of lower cost financing options available through the BRICS Bank. For example, besides the members, Uruguay, Egypt, and Bangladesh have been admitted to the New Development Bank. Uruguay appears to be formally admitted pending receipt of membership funds. The bank itself doesn't receive a ton of attention in Western media, but it is a very unique multilateral banking entity that is designed to play a key role in enabling the creation of the alternative financial framework, as well as offering better deals than the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, or the World Bank, since the two Western entities typically push their borrowers to implement certain domestic policies that are really not in their best interest. The New Development Bank is the first, by the way, non-Western-led international banking entity of its kind. So naturally, it may not have that strong support base at the moment, but it's certainly expanding with the first BRICS Bank Summit to be held in Egypt. With that, slowly but surely, there are quite substantial developments with regards to BRICS payment system. It remains to be seen what exactly the upcoming summit will reveal, what it will bring, whether or not an alternative system is fully launched. Its wide adoption and ease of use, its efficiency will become keys to its success in the long term, and its true capability to become a challenger, to challenge the SWIFT. Thanks for watching. I hope that this video was interesting. I hope that you heard something that will hopefully
around the world. And according to a new report, the United States is waging economic war all around the world. And according to a new report, the US government has imposed sanctions on 1/3 of all of the countries on Earth. And over 60% of poor countries have been sanctioned by the United States. Over 60%. What this shows is that Uncle Sam not only sees himself as the so-called policeman of the world, but really the banker of the world, or the emperor of the world. The US government constantly violates international law because these unilateral sanctions are against international law, and yet the US feels it has the right to meddle in the internal affairs of dozens of countries and try to destabilize their governments, try to overthrow their governments using many different tactics, whether it's outright military intervention, whether it's spreading media propaganda and disinformation, or whether it is economic war, which I'll be talking about today. If you look at a map of countries that are suffering under some form of US sanctions, and almost all of these sanctions are illegal under international law, you can see that it includes many countries in Africa. It includes many countries in Asia. So a huge part of the global south is being targeted by US economic war. And this does not only hurt the governments of these countries, it also hurts the people of these countries. Now, in Washington, politicians from both the Republican and Democratic parties claim that their sanctions are targeted against specific institutions, companies, and individuals. But that's actually not what actually happens. In reality, when a country faces sanctions, even if those sanctions are targeted, what happens is that foreign companies and foreign financial institutions don't want anything to do with that country. It doesn't matter if the US government claims there are supposed humanitarian exceptions for food and medicine. That's not the effect. In reality, foreign companies do not want to sell food and do not want to sell medicine to countries that are facing sanctions, which means that average people suffer in these countries. They suffer from economic problems and high rates of inflation. They suffer from a shortage of important imports, especially medicines, medical technologies, and food. So the reality is that US sanctions have literally killed millions of people. I'm not exaggerating. Today, I will be looking at the evidence showing how US economic war is not an alternative to war. In some cases, it is even deadlier than a conventional military war and has led to millions of civilian deaths in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Now, these are facts that independent journalists like me and my colleagues have been talking about for many years. But finally, the Washington Post published a report in July titled "How 4 US Presidents Unleashed Economic Warfare Across the Globe." And this article reinforces many of the things that I've been talking about constantly here at Geopolitical Economy Report. According to the Washington Post, I'm reading, quote, "The United States imposes 3 times as many sanctions as any other country or international body, targeting 1/3 of all nations," end quote. And this article notes that, quote, "By cutting their targets off from the Western financial system, sanctions can crush national industries," end quote. This report includes a chart that looks at the number of sanctions imposed by countries around the world. The United States, as of April 2024, has more than 15,000 sanctions imposed on dozens of countries. The second place is Switzerland, and in third place is the European Union. And Switzerland only has around 5,000 sanctions, which is obviously a lot, but still, the European Union has 4,800. So the US has imposed more than 3 times as many sanctions as even the European Union. Now, in this list, the only institution that has the legal authority to impose sanctions, according to international law, is the United Nations, with the support of the UN Security Council. The UN only has 875 sanctions. So the US has 14,000 more sanctions, and those are illegal because they are unilateral. They do not have the support of the UN Security Council. Therefore, they are in violation of international law. And this report also includes a useful chart that shows different countries sanctioned by the US and how severe the sanctions on them are. Now, this table is not exhaustive. There are still many other countries that are sanctioned by the US, but the highest level of severity of the sanctions include Iran, Syria, North Korea, Cuba, and Venezuela. The medium severity include Yemen, Russia, and Afghanistan. The medium-low severity include China, Sudan, Burma, that's Myanmar, Belarus, and Libya. And low severity of the sanctions include Lebanon, Nicaragua, Mali, Somalia, Ethiopia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Zimbabwe, and there are many others. Again, this is only a partial list. This report also has a chart that shows how the number of sanctions imposed by the US has skyrocketed in the past 5 presidential administrations, going back to Clinton and then George W. Bush and the so-called war on terror. The number increased. Then under Obama, it increased again. And under Trump, it skyrocketed, in particular with Trump sanctions on Venezuela. And then under Biden, it's just gone into the sky. I mean, it's just sky high. And of course, Biden's sanctions have largely been against Russia, but also against China. So you can see that each administration had their own spree of sanctions. In Bush, it was mostly due to the so-called war on terror after 9/11. And then in the Obama era, he put sanctions on Iran to try to pressure Iran to go to the negotiating table for the nuclear deal. Trump sanctions were largely against Venezuela and also against Cuba, trying to suffocate leftist governments in Latin America. He also sanctioned the Sandinista government in Nicaragua. And then, of course, under Biden, it's with the proxy war in Ukraine and the new Cold War on China, we've seen a massive increase in the use of sanctions. Now, what's also interesting is this article notes how the expansion of U.S. sanctions has led to more and more corruption and has in fact created a kind of cottage industry in Washington. It talks about a multi-billion-dollar industry that has emerged, including law firms and lobbying shops that have emerged in Washington, trying to advise the government and also advise private companies and also lobby for foreign governments to try to lift sanctions or try to figure out how to go around U.S. sanctions. And what has happened is that U.S. sanctions have empowered criminal networks and gangs of smugglers. And this has suffocated the economy of countries like, for instance, Venezuela. This is an incredible fact in this report. The illegal U.S. unilateral sanctions on Venezuela have, quote, contributed to an economic contraction roughly 3 times as large as that caused by the Great Depression in the United States, end quote. I need to emphasize this fact. This is remarkable. Imagine suffering under the Great Depression in the 1930s in the US with all of the unemployment and the poverty and the hunger. Well, what Venezuela has suffered because of these illegal US sanctions is 3 times as bad as that. I mean, this is absolutely criminal. Now, what this Washington Post report does not acknowledge is that U.S. sanctions have also killed tens of thousands of Venezuelans. This is according to a report that was published in 2019 by the Center for Economic and Policy Research, a think tank in Washington. This scientific paper was published by the prominent economist Mark Weisbrot and Jeffrey Sachs. Mark Weisbrot said, quote, "The sanctions are depriving Venezuelans of life-saving medicines, medical equipment, food, and other essential imports. This is illegal under U.S. and international law and treaties that the U.S. has signed," end quote. And Jeffrey Sachs, a very prominent economist, said, quote, "American sanctions are deliberately aiming to wreck Venezuela's economy and thereby lead to regime change," end quote. They estimated that more than 40,000 Venezuelans died from 2017 to 2018. Just in those 2 years, 40,000 deaths. And that is a very conservative estimate because in 2020, a leading international human rights expert and former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights, Alfred de Zayas, he took it further and estimated that U.S. sanctions on Venezuela had killed more than 100,000 people, according to his estimate. That was in 2020. We're now in 2024. The U.S. sanctions continue trying to suffocate the Venezuelan economy, creating a depression 3 times worse than the Great Depression. So even 100,000 deaths is probably still a conservative estimate. Again, sanctions are war. They are not an alternative to war. And by the way, civilian suffering because of U.S. sanctions is not just an unwanted side effect. It is the intended impact. The U.S. government has said this very clearly. There's a famous memo from 1960 that was an internal document published by the U.S. State Department, which has been declassified. And in it, the U.S. State Department talks about ways to try to overthrow the new revolutionary leftist government in Cuba after Fidel Castro and Che Guevara overthrew the right-wing U.S.-backed dictator Fulgencio Batista in Cuba in 1959. In this document, the US State Department acknowledged that a majority of Cubans supported Castro and there was no effective political opposition. Therefore, the US State Department concluded, quote, the only foreseeable means of alienating internal support is through disenchantment and disaffection based on economic dissatisfaction and hardship. And the US State Department insisted that, quote, every possible means should be undertaken promptly to weaken the economic life of Cuba, end quote. And here's the real money quote. The US State Department said that the US government should carry out actions that, quote, make the greatest inroads in denying money and supplies to Cuba, to decrease monetary and real wages, to bring about hunger, desperation, and overthrow of government, end quote. That is the goal of US sanctions, to bring about hunger, desperation, and overthrow of government. That's what the State Department admitted back in 1960, and that continues being the US goal in imposing sanctions on so many countries around the world today, especially relatively small countries like Venezuela, like Cuba, like Nicaragua, like Syria. Now, I will talk in a bit here about the US sanctions on Russia and China, which are countries that are actually too big to sanction. And I'll talk about how the abuse of US sanctions is actually leading to the creation of a new financial system and a more multipolar financial order. But we'll come back to that in a second. The point is that for small countries, relatively small countries that aren't huge economies like China and Russia, for small countries like Cuba, sanctions have been absolutely deadly and have led to hundreds of thousands of deaths in Venezuela and perhaps millions in Cuba. In fact, the US government did not even hide this fact. Under the Trump administration, a US government official told Univision, he bragged that US sanctions on Venezuela were like Darth Vader's grip around the throat of the Venezuelan economy. I mean, this shows how sadistic and criminal US government officials are. They are comparing themselves to Darth Vader, the imperial villain. And what they're actually acknowledging is that the US is the evil empire from Star Wars. Although actually that is quite appropriate because the creator of Star Wars, George Lucas, actually revealed that the rebels in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker and all of them, they were inspired by the Vietnamese resistance, the National Liberation Front, as it fought against the US empire during the Vietnam War. So I'm actually not too surprised to see today that US government officials are comparing themselves to Darth Vader. They are the evil empire. And what's so sickening is that US governments boast about the fact that they are waging economic war on countries around the world. They think it's funny. They laugh about it. They joke about it. One of the sickening details in this report in the Washington Post is that in 2011, the director of OFAC, that is the Office of Foreign Asset Control, this is the office in the US Treasury Department that oversees sanctions. At a holiday party in 2011, the director of this office overseeing sanctions sang a song making fun of countries sanctioned, and he was singing to the melody of the song by The Police, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. He was singing, every little thing we do is sanctions, with the melody, every little thing we do is sanctions, joking about it. He thinks it's funny that the US government is suffocating other countries economically. Well, literally hundreds of thousands of people are dying, if not millions, in Iraq, in Venezuela, in Cuba, in Syria, in Iran, because they can't get certain medicines, because they can't get medical equipment. In fact, another country where hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions of people died because of US-led sanctions is Iraq. And the Washington Post talks about this a little bit, but in a very euphemistic way. In its report, the Washington Post notes that after the Gulf War, the US pushed for comprehensive sanctions that made it impossible for Iraq to export oil or import supplies to rebuild its decimated water and electrical systems, and this led to the spread of illnesses such as cholera and typhoid. Now, that is barely scratching the surface of what happened in Iraq. This is such an important historical event that people need to understand. In the 1990s, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis died because of the US-led sanctions after the Gulf War. And this led to, famously, a top UN official resigning and accusing the Western powers of carrying out a G crime. I'm not going to say that word because then this will be censored in the algorithm, but he accused the Western powers of the G crime in Iraq. And who am I talking about? Dennis Halliday. He was formerly an assistant secretary general of the United Nations. He worked at the UN for 34 years, and he was the UN humanitarian coordinator in Iraq. And in his experience in Iraq, he saw so many civilians die because of the US-led sanctions on Iraq in the 1990s that in 1998, he resigned in protest. And he said, quote, "We are now in there responsible for killing people, destroying their families, their children, allowing their older parents to die for lack of basic medicines." Now, more recently, in 2021, Dennis Halliday, this former UN official, did a follow-up interview, and he talked about how decades later, US sanctions continue killing large numbers of civilians around the world. In this interview, Halliday noted that during the Gulf War, which was led by the US and backed by Britain and some European allies, the US bombed Iraq's civilian infrastructure, destroying all of the electric power networks in the country. And he said this completely destroyed the water treatment and distribution system, which depended on electricity. And this drove Iraqis to drink contaminated water from the Tigris and Euphrates. And he said this was the death knell for young children. Furthermore, the US military used depleted uranium, which led to a massive accumulation of nuclear debris, which caused leukemia in children. He recalled visiting hospitals in Baghdad and also Basra and other cities in Iraq, where in the hospitals were full of children dying from leukemia. And then he said, furthermore, that Washington and London withheld medicine and medical treatment components that children needed to survive from leukemia. And then he again accused the Western powers of the G crime. And he said that the Western powers were denying Iraqi children the right to remain alive. And he said, quote, "We kill people with sanctions. Sanctions are not a substitute for war. They are a form of warfare." Now, this is not something that we just learned about decades later. It's something that the US government knew in the 1990s, and top US government officials justified these crimes against humanity. The most famous example is the former US Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, under President Bill Clinton. She was asked about this in an interview on 60 Minutes, and she was asked if the price was worth it to kill 500,000 Iraqi children. And she said, yes, we think the price is worth it. Watch this chilling clip in which she justifies, this top US official justifies crimes against humanity.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died.
War criminal.
I mean, that's more children than died when in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
That video is from 1996. Nearly 30 years ago, US governments have known that sanctions are extremely deadly. And not only have they not withdrawn sanctions, they've continued expanding sanctions on countries all around the world. Again, I need to highlight this fact that the Washington Post reported. Quote, more than 60% of all low-income countries are now under some form of financial penalty. End quote. That is US sanctions. More than 60% of all poor countries on earth. And this is economic war against the civilian populations. As I've talked about, the Iraqi children who died, the Venezuelan children who died, the Cuban children who died because of these sanctions, or the children in Iran and Syria and Zimbabwe and the DPRK and so many other countries. They are victims of these sanctions. It doesn't matter if the US government claims that it has humanitarian exceptions or they're only targeted. That's not how sanctions work. Don't just take my word for that. The Washington Post itself, one of the most mainstream US media outlets, acknowledged this. It pointed out that the US government has significant power over the global financial system because the dollar, which it prints, is the global reserve currency. And the US controls international institutions like the SWIFT interbank messaging system, which means the US can try to cut off entire countries from the financial system. The article in the Washington Post notes that the Treasury Department is, quote, the gatekeeper to the world's banking operations, and sanctions are the gate, end quote. So the US Treasury it claims to have the right, of course, this violates international law, but it claims to have the right to impose sanctions on any person, any company, or any government around the world. This is a global dictatorship of the US dollar. And the Washington Post notes that for the Treasury, there is no requirement to accuse any foreign company or government official, much less convict them of a specific crime. The US Treasury can say, look, we want to sanction them to destroy their government, and we're going to do it. We're going to try to cut off Iran from the international financial system. We're going to try to cut off Nicaragua. We're going to try to cut off Venezuela or Syria. And that's exactly what they do. They don't have to go to a court. They don't have to accuse them formally of a crime. This violates international law, but of course, the US has veto power over the UN Security Council, which means that the US can break laws every single day and act as a crazy rogue regime and a pirate and steal the assets of countries like Venezuela, steal billions of dollars of gold and foreign exchange reserves. And there are no consequences because the US has paralyzed the United Nations. So as the Washington Post put it, quote, coming under US sanctions amounts to an indefinite ban from much of the global economy, end quote. In fact, the Washington Post acknowledged that the US sanctions on Venezuela were, quote, crippling. And the Washington Post said that the US sanctions resulted in, quote, exacerbating one of the worst peacetime economic collapses in modern history, end quote. One of the worst in modern history. In fact, the people of Venezuela have suffered under a kind of economic crisis that you see in countries that are victims of war, of a direct conventional military war. What this shows is that Donald Trump was waging war on Venezuela. His supporters claim he didn't start a new war. That's false. He was waging a brutal war against the people of Venezuela that killed hundreds of thousands of people. It doesn't matter if he didn't drop missiles. He dropped economic missiles on the economy of Venezuela that killed just as many people as if he were dropping missiles, if not more people. And in this article in the Washington Post, they actually quote a former US government official who oversaw Cuba policy under the Bush administration. This is someone who's a conservative, and he also was a staffer for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He said, quote, the abuse of this system is ridiculous, end quote. And then he referred to the US government approach as a, quote, you must sanction everybody and their sister, sometimes literally, system, end quote. That's the system. You must sanction everybody and their sister, sometimes literally.
Got to pay for that.
Now, finally, I want to talk more about how the US government's abuse of sanctions around the world has in some ways boomeranged back and is now causing more and more countries around the world to seek alternatives to the US dominated financial system. The Washington Post acknowledged this. It noted that an existential challenge has emerged because, quote, if sanctions make it risky to depend on dollars, nations may find other ways to trade, allowing them to dodge US penalties entirely, end quote. And this article cites Obama's Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew, who warned as far back as 2016 of what he called, quote, sanctions overreach, end quote. And he warned that the overuse of sanctions could, quote, reduce our capability to use sanctions effectively, end quote. However, what we saw, especially under Trump, which has continued under Biden, by the way, this is bipartisan, Trump massively expanded the use of sanctions. And again, his supporters claimed he didn't wage new wars. That's because he was waging economic wars around the world. Although Trump also continued the war in Afghanistan, continued the war on Yemen, expanded the war in Yemen, expanded the war in Syria, the military occupation of Syria. He boasted of taking Syria's oil. And the Trump administration imposed sanctions on top officials in the International Criminal Court at The Hague because the ICC opened an investigation into war crimes committed by US NATO forces in Afghanistan. This is how much of a crazy rogue regime the US is. And of course, Biden has continued that. And now the Biden administration is threatening to follow Trump in imposing sanctions on the ICC because the ICC applied for an arrest warrant or is going to apply for an arrest warrant against Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over his crimes against humanity in Gaza. This is the reality of the US rogue regime that is a global dictator that talks about the so-called rules-based order while it imposes sanctions against violation of international law against 1/3 of the countries on earth and the Hague itself. Now, the boomerang of US sanctions has become so obvious that even some mainstream academics and think tankers who are, neoconservatives and support US imperialism, even they are now acknowledging that US sanctions are backfiring. And this was acknowledged in a new book titled Backfire: How US Sanctions Reshape the World Against US Interests, which is by one of these neoconservative think tankers. And in this book, she admitted that what this means is that the expansion of US sanctions spurs efforts to evade them. States and companies seek ways to circumvent US penalties. She also added, quote, sanctions reshape relations between countries, pushing governments that are at odds with the US closer to each other, or increasingly to Russia and China, end quote. So now we see China, Russia, and Iran are close partners, and many other countries are joining in collaborating with them in trade and seeking alternatives to the US dollar and de-dollarization. BRICS is trying to de-dollarize, and dozens of countries across the global south have expressed interest in trying to join BRICS and the BRICS Bank, the New Development Bank, as alternatives to the US-dominated financial system and the US-dominated World Bank and IMF. And earlier I mentioned that while sanctions may be a death knell for small countries like Cuba or Venezuela or Syria, in reality, what we've seen is that some sanctions are simply too big to sanction. And this is the silver lining that I want to end my analysis with today, which is the experience of Russia. Now, the US has put some of the heaviest sanctions in history on Russia, thousands of sanctions. And in 2022, in response to the proxy war in Ukraine, US President Joe Biden claimed that Russia's currency, the ruble, would become rubble. But that's not what happened. And in fact, Russia's economy is too big to sanction, we've seen. And Russia's economy is actually growing faster than any Western economy. And Russia is reindustrializing. There was a very interesting article about this in the Financial Times titled "How the War in Ukraine is Reviving Russia's Rust Belt." What's happening is the Russian government is investing more and more in industrial production, not only because of the war, but because of the sanctions. And what we see is, as the article refers to, a, quote, rebirth of manufacturing. And the article says that, quote, this has led to a boom where many expected Western sanctions to deal a painful blow. Russia's economy is forecast to grow at 3% this year, far above the US and most European states. Now, the Russian government has brought back a robust industrial policy providing state support and funding and subsidies for manufacturing. And this has led to reindustrialization of areas that had been industrial hubs back in the Soviet Union. But when capitalism was reimposed on Russia in the 1990s and the horrific neoliberal shock therapy, and literally millions of people died, and entire regions of Russia and the former Soviet Union were deindustrialized, and many people left those areas looking for jobs in the cities. But what we now see is that those areas are reindustrializing once again in this Russian government-backed industrialization campaign. And reading here from this article in the Financial Times, quote, "Some of the most underperforming regions have suddenly started to grow. Manufacturing regions, areas where there is a lot of defense and related industry, the most underdeveloped regions and the low income segments of the population are the ones that are winning. That's where the money is going," end quote. The Financial Times reported that by the end of 2023, industrial output in Russia was up in almost 60% of the country's regions. And this is not just because of the war in Ukraine. Of course, you can have more industrial production if you're making more weapons and ammunition. But this is not just because of that. Russia's also reindustrializing because the Western sanctions on it have basically made it more self-sufficient. And now Russia is bringing back policies that are known as import substitution industrialization, ISI, which used to be very common in many countries before the neoliberal era in the 50s and 60s, in the early 70s. So as an example, the Russian government has in fact nationalized, taken over some of the private factories of foreign car companies and other companies that left Russia because of the sanctions on the country. So what's happened is actually the Russian government has revived some Soviet era companies, like for instance, a Soviet era car company, after nationalizing the factories used by foreign car companies. So this is, again, not just because of the war. What we see is that the sanctions on Russia are forcing it to reindustrialize and engage in import substitution industrialization, like countries like Brazil and Argentina tried to do in the 50s and 60s before neoliberalism was imposed on them in the debt crisis in the 1980s. So despite the horrific civilian impact of US sanctions on countries around the world, the one silver lining is I think we've seen the end of the dictatorship of the US controlled financial system. It is becoming weaker and weaker by the month because the US has overplayed its hand. It has abused the US dollar as a weapon and sanctions as a weapon. Russia and China are too big to sanction. They are now creating an alternative financial system. And the US is basically dividing the world, not only politically through its new Cold War, but it's dividing the world economically and financially. And the US and all of its proxies and so-called allies will be forced to use those institutions. And China and Russia and BRICS and the New Development Bank and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and these other Eurasian institutions and Global South-led institutions, the G77 plus China, all of these groups are trying to create alternatives to the US-controlled financial dictatorship. And for countries that are too big to sanction, this has actually helped to strengthen their economic sovereignty. China is making huge progress in advanced manufacturing, in new technologies, in semiconductors and other technologies. And the US response is to tariff them, to prevent its consumers from buying those products. So the US is dividing the global economy. And what this means is that whereas in the past few decades, US sanctions were truly a death knell for relatively small countries, suffocating the people of Cuba, suffocating the people of Venezuela. Now, I think in the years to come, US sanctions will become more and more toothless. They will not be as devastating. And in countries in alliance with China and Russia and Iran and BRICS will be able to pursue their own independent path of economic development. They won't be forced to follow the neoliberal Washington consensus that was imposed on them by US-dominated financial institutions like the World Bank and like the IMF. So yes, we are still in a time in which so many people, millions of people around the world, billions of people, are suffering because of illegal unilateral sanctions, which have been imposed on more than 1/3 of countries on Earth, including 60% of poor countries, in violation of international law. But like I said, I think this is actually the peak of this US economic war, which is going to become less and less effective as alternatives are finally created. On that note, I'm going to conclude here. I am Ben Norton, the editor-in-chief of Geopolitical Economy Report. Please like and subscribe. Please share this. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. I will see you all next time.
China has just dealt a game-changing blow to Europe, and it is set to shake up global commerce like never before. Today, we'll look at a startling action by China that is causing trade tensions with the European Union. We'll go over the essential aspects of this unfolding tale and how they may have an unexpected influence on global markets. After looking deep into the newest events, we're ready to reveal why this might be one of China's most strategic acts in recent years. But before we get into the specifics, please like and subscribe to the Global Narrative. We're all about giving you the most recent and best information, so don't miss out. Okay, let us get right into it. China recently delivered a surprise when it announced an anti-subsidy inquiry into European dairy exports. Yes, you heard it correctly. This follows on the heels of the EU's decision to slap tariffs on Chinese electric automobiles. So let's break it down and figure out what's going on, why it matters, and what it can imply for everyone involved. Let's go back a little bit. Recently, the relationship between China and the EU has been a roller coaster. The EU recently agreed to impose significant tariffs on Chinese-made EVs, arguing that these cars were receiving unfair subsidies. We're talking about tariffs that may reach 48%. This is a significant development that might disrupt Chinese manufacturers' efforts to establish a presence in Europe. Now, you may be asking how we got here in the first place. After the EU's declaration, China did not simply sit back and accept it. They've begun responding with their measures. Initially, many people believed China would target European automakers, particularly the large German brands. Instead, they have switched their focus to agricultural items. First, there was brandy and meat, and now dairy is under the spotlight. So what exactly is the anti-subsidy probe about? On August 21st, the Chinese Commerce Ministry declared that they would investigate different dairy products imported from the EU. This encompasses everything from cheeses to creams, with a focus on goods containing more than 10% fat. The nations under investigation include Austria, Belgium, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Finland, Italy, Ireland, and Romania. The Dairy Association of China and the China Dairy Industry Association filed a complaint prompting this inquiry. They claim that EU subsidies provide their dairy goods with an unfair edge in the Chinese market. Here's the kicker. Last year, Ireland alone exported over $461 million worth of dairy to China. In all, the EU shipped dairy commodities worth around 1.7 billion euros to China in 2023. There's a lot of cheese at stake. Now let's discuss what this implies for the economy. The dairy industry is very significant to the EU, not just financially, but also politically. The demonstrations earlier this year demonstrated that farmers have a significant influence on European politics. By focusing on agriculture, China is bringing farmers into the equation, making it more difficult for EU politicians to disregard the consequences of their tariff choices. And now is when things become very fascinating. By concentrating on agriculture, China may react without affecting important industries like technology and manufacturing. Remember when China went after Australian wines a few years ago? That was a smart move that had Australian winemakers scurrying. Now, with dairy, China is attempting to preserve its interests while sending a strong message to the EU. Speaking of strategy, this analysis contributes to a larger picture of how China is managing its economic terrain. The Chinese economy is strongly reliant on exports, so an escalation in trade disputes might have major consequences. By focusing on agricultural exports, China hopes to mitigate the impact of EU tariffs while protecting its important industries. On the other hand, the EU's decision to impose tariffs on Chinese EVs was solely based on the need to protect its automotive industry. The updated plan included a few small changes, but it still leaves many Chinese firms facing high tariffs. For example, BYD, China's leading EV manufacturer, is presently facing a 17% tax, while IC motor cars might face up to 36.3%. Tesla, which exports from China, was able to bargain down to a 9% duty after some back and forth. It's a tough game out there. So, how is the EU responding to all this? They're standing strong. The European Commission has said unequivocally that it is dedicated to defending its sectors and that all investigations and tariffs are conducted by World Trade Organization standards. They're not giving up easy. But here's the deal. The EU's most recent draft of EV tariffs includes some changes, indicating that they are at least prepared to consider certain concerns. However, China is not buying it. A spokeswoman for the Ministry of Commerce attacked the EU's conclusions, stating they were prejudiced and predetermined. Both parties have dug in, and discussions are going to get considerably more challenging. As we see events develop, consider China's point of view. The Chinese government is upset with the EU's tariff choices, claiming that they do not adequately consider China's stance. They've produced a massive amount of paperwork to defend their activities, highlighting that these filings refute the EU's charges of unfair competition. China is also concerned about the wider repercussions of the EU's tariffs on the global automobile supply chain. They argue that such actions might eventually harm both areas. After all, the automobile sector is critical for both the EU and China, particularly as both countries shift toward electric cars. Now let's step back and consider the larger picture. The consequences of this anti-subsidy inquiry extend well beyond China and the EU. With both areas playing key roles in the global automobile sector, any escalation might disrupt supply chains and influence prices. For example, battery electric cars' market share in the EU fell from 14.5% in 2023 to 12% in the first 4 months of 2024. Increased tariffs on Chinese EVs may delay the supply of inexpensive electric cars in Europe, hampering the EU's transition efforts. This circumstance demonstrates the difficult balance between safeguarding local industry and promoting a competitive global market. If both parties are not cautious, they may wind up harming themselves in the long term. So, what's the lesson from all of this? China is interested in EU dairy goods. This is causing trade tensions to rise. As both sides work things out, China sends a strong statement while attempting to preserve its economy. The EU must exercise caution and avoid escalating the situation. Hopefully, they can talk it out and find some common ground for a more productive commercial relationship. What are your thoughts? Will China's recent action exacerbate trade tensions, or will it force the EU to reconsider?
Now, a day after spotting of its most advanced class 075 warship set off alarm bells in the Philippines, social media posts are indicating that one of China's amphibious warships has a new installation. It was spotted following a refit of the ship and appears to be a laser-directed energy weapon.
Imagine a warship so advanced with its state-of-the-art modern weapons, its arsenal can easily fry enemy drones after catching a mere sight of them. China has officially buffed its naval capacity to new heights with the integration of laser weapons on its warship. Quality and quantity, it seems the PLA Navy is focused on both scenarios and conquering them spectacularly. Today's episode will uncover the fresh new development in the Chinese Navy where a warship has been equipped with a frying laser weapon. China has taken a significant leap forward in military technology by deploying a laser-directed energy weapon on one of its warships, a move that is likely to raise eyebrows among its global rivals, particularly the United States and its allies. The deployment of this advanced weaponry is seen as a strategic effort to counter the ever-evolving threats posed by drones, satellite networks, and other sophisticated surveillance or attack technologies. The laser system, which was recently spotted on a Type 071 amphibious transport dock ship, stands out with its dome-like cover, positioned just behind the ship's 76mm dual-purpose gun, hinting at its potential role in future naval engagements. The Type 071 ship, which underwent a recent refit, now serves as a platform for this cutting-edge laser weapon. This deployment is a clear indication of China's growing emphasis on energy-based defense systems. These systems, unlike traditional weapons, offer a range of advantages that make them highly appealing for modern warfare. Laser weapons, for instance, are not only powerful, but also cost-effective. They can engage multiple targets with precision, and as long as there is a reliable power source, they can fire an almost infinite number of shots. This makes them particularly effective against drones, which are becoming increasingly common on the battlefield. The introduction of this laser weapon on a Chinese warship is not just a technological achievement, it is also a strategic message to the world. As tensions continue to rise in various parts of the globe, especially in the South China Sea, China's move could be seen as a way to assert its dominance and protect its interests. The US and its allies, who have been closely monitoring China's military developments, may now find themselves in a position where they need to rethink their strategies. After all, how does one counter a weapon that can fry drones in an instant? China's focus towards arming drones and at the same time producing counters for enemy drones is an excellent strategy in a bid to empower both offense and defense of the nation. While this is the first known instance of a laser system being installed on a Chinese amphibious naval ship, it is unlikely to be the last. Experts believe that this deployment is part of a bigger plan to equip more ships in the Chinese Navy with similar systems. The Type 071, commissioned in 2007, was the largest operational amphibious ship in the People's Liberation Army Navy plan until the introduction of the Type 075 in 2021. With a displacement of around 25,000 tons, the Type 071 is a formidable vessel, complete with a flight deck, a hangar, and the capacity to carry 4 Z-8 transport helicopters and approximately 60 armored fighting vehicles. But why has China chosen now to deploy such a weapon? The answer lies in the ongoing advancements in military technology and the increasing importance of laser-based systems in modern warfare. Lasers are not just about shooting down drones. They represent the next generation of weaponry that can be deployed in the air, on land, and at sea. Major powers like the US and China are actively developing these systems, recognizing their potential to change the dynamics of warfare. For instance, the US has already made significant strides in this area, equipping its naval ships, like the USS Portland and USS Preble, with laser systems designed for drone defense and optical dazzling. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the latest and most advanced aircraft carrier in the US Navy, is also testing laser weapons as a countermeasure to China's growing hypersonic threats. It's a technological race that is unfolding right before our eyes, and the stakes could not be higher. China, however, is not content with just keeping pace with the US. In recent years, the Chinese Navy has tested tactical laser systems similar to those used by the US Navy. In 2019, Chinese media reported plans to equip naval ships, possibly the Type 0535 destroyer, with ground-based, vehicle-mounted laser weapons for air defense and close-in protection. This is part of a broader strategy to enhance China's defensive and offensive capabilities in a rapidly changing global security environment. Also, the potential applications of laser weapons go beyond just naval warfare. A recent study from the PLA's Naval Submarine Academy suggested the possibility of using megawatt-class lasers on submarines to target satellites, including SpaceX's Starlink network, if necessary. This shows that China is thinking ahead, preparing for a future where space-based assets could become targets in conflicts. Now, you might be thinking that on a larger scale, what does this mean for the global balance of power? As China continues to advance its military capabilities, it is likely to shift the dynamics of global security. The US and its allies may find themselves needing to develop new strategies and technologies to counter China's growing influence. Could this lead to a new arms race, where laser weapons become the standard for military engagements? Only time will tell. This warship, equipped with a state-of-the-art laser weapon, is ready to revolutionize future warfare by easily neutralizing drones. The laser's precision and rapid response time allow it to target and destroy drones mid-flight with pinpoint accuracy, making traditional missile systems seem obsolete. Unlike conventional weapons, the laser can fire continuously as long as it has a power source, enabling it to counter swarms of drones efficiently. In a world where drones are becoming increasingly prevalent in combat, this warship's ability to fry them with energy-based attacks positions it as a formidable force in modern naval warfare. In the meantime, China's deployment of this laser weapon is a clear signal that it is ready to take on any challenges that come its way. The country's rapid advancements in military technology, coupled with its strategic deployments, demonstrate its determination to protect its interests and assert its position on the global stage. This latest development is just one piece of a much larger puzzle, but it is a piece that could have significant implications for the future of warfare. As we watch these events unfold, one can't help but wonder, what other surprises does China have in store? The pace at which China is developing and deploying new military technologies suggests that this is just the beginning. With each new advancement, China is not only strengthening its own military capabilities, but also challenging the established norms of global power with an iron fist. The world will be watching closely, and so will its adversaries. After all, in a world where technology is constantly evolving, staying ahead of the curve is the key to maintaining a strategic advantage, and China, it seems, is determined to do just that. With much about new development in the Chinese Navy, where a warship has been equipped with a frying laser weapon covered, it is time to wrap this one up. If you have any topics in mind, comment below and
Coffee. Follow